Welcome. Tonight, we're opening the pages of one of Persia's greatest treasures, the timeless world of the Shahnameh. Before we begin our peaceful journey, I'd love to welcome you to Forgotten Hours. If you enjoy relaxing historical sleep stories like this, please take a quiet moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who could use a peaceful night. Your support truly helps this channel grow, and allows me to keep bringing these forgotten stories to life. Now, find a comfortable place. Let your breathing slow. Leave the noise of the day behind. The candles are glowing. The ancient library is waiting, and the pages of the Shahnameh are ready to whisper their timeless stories. Let's begin. Moonlit Whispers of the Shahnameh. Chapter 1. Opening the Ancient Book. The night is very still. Very, very still. And you are here. Quietly. Peacefully. At rest. Take a slow, gentle breath. And let it go. Just like that. There is nowhere else to be tonight. There is nothing you need to do. Nothing you need to remember. Nothing you need to solve. Tonight you simply rest. Tonight you simply listen. And the story begins to find you. Softly. Slowly. Like candlelight touching the edge of a page. Imagine now a warm summer night. The air is soft and still, carrying with it the faintest trace of jasmine. And something older, something deeper, the quiet, familiar scent of cedar wood, and aged parchment, and beeswax candles burning low. You are standing at the entrance of an ancient library. A library unlike any you have ever seen before. The walls are thick, made of pale stone that has absorbed centuries of warmth. The stone remembers the hands that shaped it. The stone remembers the voices that once passed through these halls. And tonight, it holds all of that memory quietly within itself. For you step through the doorway, and the night air follows you gently for just a moment. Then the door closes behind you. Not with a slam, not with a click, but with the softest, most gentle whisper of wood against stone. Like a sigh. Like a breath released after a long, beautiful day. And now you are inside. The library is bathed in warm amber light. Oil lamps flicker along the walls. Their flames are small and steady. Small orange flames that breathe in and out. In and out. Casting long, gentle shadows across the shelves. The shadows move slowly. Dancing without hurry. The way shadows only move in places where time itself has learned to be patient. The shelves rise on every side of you, floor to ceiling, carved from deep walnut wood. The carving is intricate. Flowers and vines and geometric stars winding their way up each pillar. Between those carvings, the books. Hundreds of them. Each one resting quietly in its place. Waiting. The way books always wait. With infinite patience. With infinite warmth. You breathe in slowly. And you notice the fragrance again. Cedar. Old parchment. Beeswax. And something else. Something sweet and faintly resinous. The lingering trace of ink that was mixed with rosewater long, long ago. The scent of a world preserved in words. Your footsteps are very quiet here. The floor is smooth stone, worn soft by centuries of scholars and scribes who walk these same paths. Their footsteps worn into the stone like poetry worn into memory. You walk slowly. There is no rush. The night is long and gentle, and everything you need is already here. At the far end of the room, you see it. A table. A single beautifully carved wooden table, positioned just beneath the warmest cluster of oil lamps. The lamps hang from a brass chandelier above it, their flames reflected in the polished wood below. And on that table, resting with great quiet dignity, is the book. Even from across the room, you can sense its presence. Something about it draws the eyes the way a warm fire draws cold hands. You walk toward it. Slowly. The oil lamps glow a little warmer as you approach. Or perhaps it only feels that way. Perhaps the light has always been this warm, and you are only now beginning to notice. The book is large. Larger than you expected. Its cover is bound in dark leather, deep burgundy, the color of pomegranate wine in the last light of evening. The leather is worn smooth at the corners, not from carelessness, but from reverence, from the hundreds of gentle hands that have touched it before yours. Around the edges of the cover, there is a border of gilded decoration, intricate patterns pressed into the leather with golden ink, arabesques and medallions and tiny, perfect stars. The gold has faded slightly in the oldest places, not with neglect, but with time, with the beautiful, inevitable passage of time. And in that fading there is something precious, a record of every night this book has been opened and read and loved. At the center of the cover, there is a medallion, a great sunburst of gold and lapis lazuli blue, petals radiating outward in perfect geometric symmetry. At its very center, a single word in Persian calligraphy, curved and flowing and utterly, heartbreakingly beautiful. Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. You stand before it for a long, quiet moment. You do not rush. You simply look at it, and breathe, and feel the weight of what rests on this table before you. The Shahnameh, one of the greatest works of literature ever written, composed by the poet Abolkasem Ferdowsi of Tus, a man who spent 30 years of his life writing this epic. 30 years, carrying the weight of Persian history and mythology in his mind and his heart and his hands. Day after day, page after page, word after carefully chosen word. Ferdowsi was born around the year 940 of the Common Era, in the city of Tus, in the region of Khorasan, in what is today the northeastern corner of Iran. Tus was a city of scholars and gardens and flowing water, a city where poetry was considered not a luxury, but a necessity, as necessary as bread, as necessary as the cool water of a mountain stream on a summer afternoon. Ferdowsi grew up surrounded by stories, the old stories of Persia, stories that had been passed down through generations, first in spoken word, then written in the Pahlavi script of an earlier age, then translated and compiled into collections. And it was from these older sources that Ferdowsi drew his great work, not simply copying them, but breathing new life into them, crafting them into poetry of such beauty and depth that they have endured for over 1,000 years. He chose to write the Shahnameh in New Persian, a profound and deliberate choice, because in the centuries following the Arab conquest of Persia, the Persian language itself had been under pressure. Many scholars wrote in Arabic, the prestige language of the courts and the mosques and the academies. But Ferdowsi chose Persian, beautiful, ancient, flowing Persian. He wanted to preserve the language of his ancestors. He wanted the old stories told in the tongue that had first dreamed them. And so he wrote 60,000 couplets, or by some counts nearly 100,000 lines, a vast ocean of verse, containing within it the whole mythological and legendary history of Iran, from the first king of the world to the fall of the ancient Persian Empire to the Arabs. A history that was also a meditation on heroism and justice and the nature of power. on love and loss and the passage of time, on what it means to be human in a world both beautiful and difficult. You think of all of this as you stand before the book. And then, very gently, you reach out, and you place your fingertips on the cover. The leather is cool beneath your touch. Not cold. Cool. The way marble is cool in the morning before the sun has reached it. The way deep water is cool even on the hottest day. A coolness that is restful. That is welcoming. That seems to say, here, rest here, you are safe. You slide your fingers to the right edge of the cover, and you begin to lift. The cover opens with the softest, most delicate sound. A whisper of leather and parchment. A sound like a single breath exhaled into a quiet room. The spine of the book is flexible and supple still. It has been well cared for. Someone has loved this book for a very long time. And then you see the first page. Oh, the first page. The illumination is extraordinary. A border of interlocking geometric patterns in gold and cobalt blue and the deepest green. Vines of gold spiraling inward from each corner, meeting at the center of the page where the text begins. The calligraphy is written in a style called Nastaliq, the flowing, elegant script that Persian scribes developed over centuries. Letters that seem not so much written as grown, like branches of a willow curving toward water. Leaning, graceful, unhurried. Each letter connected to the next in a chain of breathtaking beauty. Between the lines of calligraphy, tiny illustrations. Birds with golden wings perched on branches of silver. A deer grazing in a meadow of lapis blue. A peacock with a tail like a painted sunset. A crescent moon hanging over distant mountains. Each illustration so small you must lean close to see it clearly. And when you lean close, the warmth of the oil lamps touches your face. And the scent of the page rises to meet you. Parchment and rosewater ink and the ghost of beeswax candles burned 100 years ago. Breathe that in. Just breathe it in. Let it fill you. The parchment itself is remarkable. Made from animal skin, most likely sheep or goat. Prepared with great patience and skill. Stretched and dried and scraped smooth over many days. Then rubbed with pumice stone to achieve a surface fine enough for the finest calligraphy. The parchment of a great illuminated manuscript like this was itself a work of art before a single letter was written upon it. In the great scriptoria and court workshops of medieval Persia, the making of a book like this was a collective effort. Not one person but many. The paper or parchment maker, the calligrapher who laid down the text, the illuminator who painted the decorative borders, the miniaturist who created the illustrations, the gilder who applied the gold, the bookbinder who assembled and bound the final work, each one a master of their craft. Each one contributing their skills to something greater than themselves. A community of artisans working together across months or even years to create something that would last, that would endure, that you could hold in your hands tonight. You turn the first page. The paper beneath is slightly different from the first. The first page was parchment, the most precious material. These inner pages are made of fine laid paper. Paper that came to Persia from China and Central Asia centuries ago, and was then refined and perfected by Persian papermakers who added their own arts to the craft. Persian paper was made from flax and cotton and hemp, mixed with water and beaten to a fine pulp, then spread in thin sheets over woven screens, and dried in the sun, then polished with an agate burnisher until the surface gleamed like ivory. The ink on these pages is rich and dense, made from lampblack and iron gall and gum arabic mixed with precision, mixed in small stone inkwells that kept the ink at the perfect consistency. Not too thick. Not too thin. The ink of a master scribe. Black as the night sky before the moon rises. You imagine the scribe who wrote these words, sitting at a low desk, cross-legged on a thick cushion. The paper resting on a slanted board held in the lap. A reed pen in the right hand. The calamus, cut from the reed of a marsh in Mesopotamia or along the banks of the Curran River. Cut with a penknife at a precise angle to achieve the perfect nib. The right thickness for Nastaliq calligraphy. The reed pen is one of the oldest writing instruments in human history, used in this region for thousands of years. The ancient Sumerians used reed styluses to press cuneiform into clay tablets, and their successors in this land continued using the reed in its evolved form. The reed pen that produces letters of extraordinary beauty, letters that swell and thin as the pen moves, creating a rhythm of thick and thin strokes, like music made visible. You can almost see the scribe's hand moving across the page, slowly, deliberately, each stroke made with full attention, full presence, no letter written carelessly, no line rushed, because the calligrapher understood something essential. That writing is not merely communication. Writing is devotion. Writing is prayer in visible form. The Persian calligraphers called their art the geometry of the spirit. And so each page of this book before you was made with that spirit, with that devotion, with that patient, loving attention. You trace one finger very lightly along the edge of the page, not touching the text, just the border. The gold of the illuminated border is raised very slightly from the surface. You can feel it. A texture so faint it is almost imaginary, like the pulse of something living. Outside the library, the Persian garden breathes. You can hear it, just barely, through the thick stone walls. The sound of water, a fountain. Its voice so gentle it is almost indistinguishable from silence itself. The Persian garden, the Chahar Bagh, the four-part garden, one of humanity's most ancient and beautiful visions of paradise. The word paradise itself comes from the old Persian word paradisa, meaning an enclosed garden, a walled garden, a place of beauty and order and peace enclosed against the wilderness outside. The classic Persian garden is divided into 4 quadrants by channels of running water, water flowing from a central pool or fountain, out along 4 channels toward the 4 corners of the garden. The 4 rivers of paradise. Water that gives life and coolness and the sweetest possible sound. Cypress trees line the paths, tall and dark and perfectly still in the summer night. The cypress has always been sacred in Persian culture, a symbol of eternity, of dignity, of the soul standing upright between earth and heaven. Ferdowsi himself wrote of cypress trees. In the Shahnameh, a beautiful garden is incomplete without the cypress, standing sentinel, reaching upward, a tree that holds its shape through every season, that does not bow in the wind, that does not lose its green in winter, a tree of constancy. You can almost smell the garden from here. Roses, Persian roses. The rose has been cultivated in Persia for over 5,000 years. Gardens of red and pink and white roses. Roses that were so prized that Persian gardeners traveled the world to share their cultivation. The damask rose takes its name from Damascus but its ancestry from Persia. Their scent even now seems to drift through the walls, warm and sweet and ancient. And beneath the roses and the cypress and the fountains, the night sky, immense, full of stars. In the medieval world, before electric lights, the night sky was a presence, not just a backdrop. An ocean of light above. The astronomers and poets of Persia loved the stars with a profound and scholarly passion. They named hundreds of stars. They measured the movements of the planets. They built great observatories. And they wrote about the stars with the same care they brought to their poetry. Ferdowsi himself lived under those stars. When he sat writing in the long nights of Khorasan, the stars would have been everywhere, cold and brilliant over the flat plains and low hills of his homeland. Stars that had seen empires rise and fall. Stars that looked down with the same calm light on kings and peasants and poets alike. You look back at the page before you, at the first lines of the Shahnameh. The poem opens not with kings and battles, but with praise. Praise for the mind, for the divine gift of reason and thought. Ferdowsi begins by calling the intellect the greatest gift of God, greater even than a throne, greater even than an army, the ability to think and perceive and understand. This is characteristic of the deepest Persian philosophical and poetic tradition. The elevation of wisdom above power. The belief that a king who rules with justice and understanding is worth infinitely more than a conqueror who rules with only force. The Shahnameh is full of kings. But the kings it remembers most lovingly are not the most powerful. They are the most just, the most wise, the most human. You turn to the next page. Here there is an illustration, a miniature painting, small enough to rest in the palm of your hand if you were to lift it from the page. But you don't lift it. You only look. The painting shows a king, seated on a throne. The throne is decorated with gold and jewels. But the king himself is seated simply, not rigid with ceremony, but leaning slightly forward. Listening. A figure stands before him. A man in the robes of a scholar or an advisor. And the king is listening, with full attention, with evident respect. This is the image the Persian tradition loved most. Not the king who commands, but the king who listens. The colors of the miniature are extraordinary. Deep lapis lazuli blue, malachite green, vermilion red, and gold, always gold, applied with a brush so fine it must have been made of only a few hairs. The gold laid down in thin strokes that catch the lamplight now, shimmering as if the painting itself is alive. Lapis lazuli, the deep blue mineral that came to Persian artists from the mines of Badakhshan, in what is today Afghanistan. A journey of weeks or months along mountain roads, carried by traders across high passes and through desert valleys, to arrive at the workshops of court painters in Herat and Tabriz and Shiraz, where it was ground to powder, and mixed with binding agents, and applied with patient, loving care, to create blues of extraordinary depth and richness. Blues that you feel rather than simply see. Blues that carry within them the weight of sky and ocean and distance. You are leaning slightly forward now, looking closely at the painting. Your breath is very quiet. The oil lamps are steady. The fountain in the garden continues its soft song, and the night holds everything very gently, like a parent holding a sleeping child. Breathe in, and let it go. There is a scent rising from the page. Very faint. The ghost of a scent. Persian scribes and illuminators sometimes added saffron or sandalwood or rosewater to their inks and pigments. Not just for preservation, but for beauty. Because a manuscript that carries a beautiful fragrance offers something that a beautiful image cannot. Something that reaches deeper, into the oldest parts of the brain, where memory lives, where emotion lives. Saffron, the most precious spice in the world. grown in the fields of Khorasan, Ferdowsi's own homeland. The crimson threads harvested by hand in the cold autumn mornings, each flower yielding only 3 stigmas. Thousands of flowers to produce a single gram. And yet the fields of Khorasan produced it in abundance. The saffron fields of Torbat Haidari and Cain, still among the greatest saffron-growing regions on earth. Their golden spice traveling the world. You settle a little more deeply into the quiet. Your shoulders soften. Your hands rest gently at your sides. The book is before you. The lamp burns warmly above. And the story simply is. You turn to the 3rd page. Here the text continues, line after graceful line of Nastaliq. And as you look at it, even without being able to read every word, there is something meditative in the pattern of the script. The way the lines descend from right to left across the page. Each line a complete thought. Each thought a complete world. The visual rhythm of Persian calligraphy is its own form of music. A music made of shapes, of curves and angles and the beautiful, breathing space between letters. The calligraphers of medieval Persia, the masters of the script, were among the most celebrated artists of their age. A master calligrapher was not simply a skilled technician. He was an artist whose work was signed and collected and treasured. His name inscribed with pride at the end of a manuscript. The way a painter signs a canvas. Some of the greatest calligraphers left treatises about their art. About the proper angle of the pen. The proper consistency of ink. The proper posture and breathing of the scribe. Yes, breathing. The way a calligrapher breathed was considered important, because letters made during moments of tension or hurry would carry that tension in their shape. Letters made in stillness, in full, quiet presence, would be still and present in their beauty. In some traditions, calligraphers would begin their work with meditation, with prayers, with a deliberate quieting of the mind, before the pen touched the page, so that what emerged from the pen would carry peace within it, would carry beauty not just in its form but in its essence. This too feels like something you understand deeply tonight. This quieting before you begin, this settling, this releasing of the day, before you allow the beauty to come. The oil lamp above you flickers very gently, just once, as if something in the room has taken a small, soft breath. And then the flame steadies again, burning with its quiet, patient warmth. There is a sound from outside, faint and sweet. A nightingale, the bulbul, the bird that in Persian poetry is always singing its love for the rose. Its song rising and falling in the darkness of the garden. Each note a small, perfect jewel of sound. In Persian poetry, the nightingale is the lover, the rose is the beloved, and the nightingale's song is both a celebration of beauty and a lamentation of longing, of reaching for something so beautiful it can never be fully held. Hafez wrote of the nightingale and the rose. Rumi wrote of the nightingale and the rose. And long before them, in the pages of the Shahnameh itself, birds carried messages and meanings, served as symbols of the soul's longing for its divine home. The nightingale sings on outside, and you listen, and the pages of the book before you seem to breathe with the sound of it, as if the book and the garden and the bird and the night are all one thing. One long, continuous poem, one unbroken meditation on beauty. You turn another page. This page is different. This page is darker. Not with sadness, but with depth. The illuminated border here uses more deep blue, more of that profound lapis lazuli, and less gold, and in the center of the page, a landscape. A painting of mountains under a night sky. Tiny stars in the deep blue night. A river winding through a valley. Trees along the riverbank. And far in the distance, a city. Its lights small and warm against the vastness of the dark mountain. This is the landscape of Persia. Or rather, this is the inner landscape of Persia. The way the land looked in the imagination of its poets and painters. Vast and ancient and shot through with a melancholy beauty. A landscape that has seen everything. And endured everything. And remains. The mountains of Persia are very old. The Alborz range in the north. The Zagros in the west. Mountains that were old when the first Persian kings were young. Mountains that appear in the Shahnameh as places of legend and power. Mount Damavand, the highest peak of the Alborz, looming over the stories of heroes and monsters and divine battles. A mountain so high that its summit is often hidden in clouds. A mountain that seems to belong to two worlds at once. The world of men below, and some other world above, where only the eagles and the storms live. Damavand is mentioned in the Shahnameh. It is the mountain where the tyrant Zahak is imprisoned for eternity. Chained inside the mountain. Sleeping, but not free. A story that carries within it something essential about the relationship between the Persian imagination and the natural world. The mountains as places of both power and imprisonment. Of both freedom and finitude. But tonight, the mountain in this painting is peaceful. Moonlit. Quiet. The river catches the moonlight and becomes a ribbon of silver. The city in the distance glows with its small warm lights. And somewhere in that city, a library. Just like this one. Where someone else once opened a book on a summer night. And sat quietly. And let the stories come to them. The way stories always come. When you are still enough to receive them. You are still. You are very still. Your breath is slow and even. The weight of the day has lifted from your shoulders. You are here only. In this warm room. With this beautiful book. And the soft sound of a fountain in a garden. And a nightingale singing somewhere in the dark. Let your eyes rest. Just for a moment. Just breathe. When you look at the book again, you notice something you hadn't seen before. At the very corner of the page, a tiny notation. Written in a different hand. A smaller, quicker script. The handwriting of a reader. Someone who held this book long ago. And wanted to remember something. And so wrote it here. In the margin. The marginalia of ancient manuscripts. These small notations left by readers across the centuries are among the most touching and intimate traces of human life we possess. A reader in the year 1200 wanting to remember a line. A scholar in the year 1350 recording a question. A student in the year 1500 noting a connection to another text. Each notation a small act of conversation across time. A whisper from one reader to another. Across the centuries. You, here tonight, are part of that conversation. You too are a reader. Sitting with this book. In the warmth of this lamp. Taking in what it offers. Adding your own quiet presence to the centuries of presences that have gathered around it. The book does not belong to you. The book does not belong to anyone. The book belongs to all of them. All the readers. All the listeners. All the quiet souls who came to it in the night. And found what they needed. You turn another page. And another. The text continues. The graceful lines of Nastaliq. Falling like water down the page. Right to left. Right to left. as the eye learns to follow them. There is a kind of deep peace in the direction of Persian script. It feels like a turning inward, like the lines are not going outward into the world, but returning to the center, returning to the source. And the source of the Shahnameh, the deepest source, is not a historical record, not a chronicle of events, but a meditation on the human soul, on what it means to live well, to rule justly, to love faithfully, to face the end with dignity. These are the questions the book asks. In every story, in every character, in every turn of the verse. King Jamshid, who ruled in an age of paradise, when there was no death and no disease and the world was full and beautiful, until pride entered his heart, and the paradise began to crack. This is not a history. This is a dream of what we lost, and a quiet question about what we might recover. Rostam, the great hero, son of Zal, son of the mythical bird Simorg who raised Zal from infancy. Rostam who rides his great horse Raksh, whose coat is the color of saffron petals against white. Rostam who battles demons and dragons and invading armies, but who at his greatest moments shows not ferocity but compassion, not power but loyalty. This is not a story of conquest. This is a story of what we owe each other. Siavash, the young prince of incomparable virtue, so pure and good that when accused of wrongdoing he chooses trial by fire rather than deny his innocence. And the fire does not harm him, because the fire itself recognizes purity. This is not a test of physical courage. This is a story about what it means to have nothing to hide, what it means to live in perfect alignment between your inner truth and your outward life. These are the stories that wait within these pages. And tonight, you do not need to read them all. You do not need to understand every word. You only need to sit here, in this warm light, and feel them surrounding you, the way old music surrounds you. Even if you don't know the words, even if you don't know the language, the feeling reaches you. The oil lamps burn. The nightingale sings. The fountain whispers in the garden. And the book rests open on the table before you, its pages breathing very gently in the still air. You have been here a long time, or perhaps only a few moments. Time moves differently here. Time in this library moves the way time moves in a beautiful dream. Not forward exactly, not in a line, but in circles, expanding circles, like ripples from a stone dropped into still water. The stone, the word, dropped long ago, by Ferdowsi, into the still water of the Persian language, and the ripples have been expanding ever since. For more than 1,000 years, outward and outward, touching shores the poet never imagined, reaching ears in countries he never knew existed, carrying within them something essential, something that does not need translation, the feeling of a story well told, the feeling of truth wrapped in beauty. You look at the page again, and you notice that one of the oil lamps has burned lower than the others. Its flame is smaller now, softer, casting a gentler, warmer light. The kind of light that tells you that the night is deepening, that the hours are moving slowly toward the quiet heart of the night, the hour when everything sleeps, when even the stars seem to hold their breath. The nightingale in the garden has grown quieter, its song less frequent now. A note here, a silence there, and then another note, like a conversation winding down, like a story finding its resting place. You look at the book one more time, At the illuminated page before you, the gold border, the deep blue sky of the miniature painting, the graceful lines of Nastaliq flowing right to left across the page. And you breathe. There is one more thing you notice before you let your eyes grow heavy. At the very bottom of the page, after the last line of verse, there is a small colophon, a dedication, written in a different ink, slightly faded with age. In Persian. This book was written for all those who love beautiful things and wish to carry beauty with them into the night. Yes, that is you. That has always been you. You carry beauty with you into the night. You carry it now, in your quiet mind, in your still heart, in the peaceful darkness behind your eyes. The oil lamp burns, lower and lower, very slowly. The garden breathes outside, soft with the scent of roses and cool water. The book rests open before you, patient as it has always been, patient as the stars. And you begin to let go of the day, of the weight of everything you carried today, of all the thoughts that waited impatiently at the edges of your mind. You let them drift, like petals drifting from a rose, slowly, without hurry, carried by the gentlest of winds, down and down, into the deep, soft night. The story holds you, the book holds you, the library holds you, the garden holds you, the night holds you, and you are safe. You are warm. You are here. Rest now. Just rest. The book will be here when you wake. The garden will still be breathing. The fountain will still be singing. And Ferdowsi's words will still be glowing on the page. Patient. Eternal. Waiting for you. Rest. Just rest. Chapter 2. The Gardens Between the Pages. The night is still with you. Still and soft and full of a deep, patient warmth. You have been resting here, in the amber glow of the oil lamps, with the book open before you, and the garden breathing just beyond the walls. Now, very gently, you return, not to the world of urgency or effort, but to this warm room, to this open book, to this beautiful, quiet night. Take a slow breath, slow and easy, in and out, in and out. Let your shoulders settle. Let your hands rest where they are. Let the night hold you. The night is very good at holding things. It has been holding the world for as long as the world has existed. It knows exactly how to hold you. The oil lamps are still burning, their flames small and steady and warm. The book is still open, the parchment still glowing with its illuminated borders of gold and lapis. And as you look at the page before you, something begins to happen. Very slowly, very gently, the garden begins to come through the page. This is the nature of a truly great book. When you give it your full, quiet attention, when you slow your breathing and still your mind, and allow the words and images to fill you completely, the book stops being a flat surface of ink on parchment, and becomes a window, or better, a door. The garden of the Shahnameh is opening before you. And what a garden it is! Imagine a garden enclosed within high walls of pale sun-warmed brick. The wall is old, older than memory. Its bricks the color of dried earth and afternoon light. Vines have crept along its surface over decades. Dark green ivy and jasmine and climbing roses, their tendrils finding purchase in the smallest cracks. living in the spaces between, growing slowly, unhurried, the way all the most beautiful things grow. You step through a low arched gateway in the wall. The gate is made of carved wood. The carving is geometric, stars and hexagons interlocking in a pattern that could repeat forever in every direction. The grain of the old wood has darkened with age, and the iron handle, a small crescent-shaped handle, is smooth from centuries of hands that have grasped it before yours. The gate swings open silently, and you step through, into the garden. The air is different here, cooler, more alive. It carries within it the presence of running water and green growing things and the deep, fertile earth. The night air of a garden is something truly special. It carries the exhalations of thousands of leaves, all breathing together in the darkness. A kind of slow, vegetable breathing that adds something invisible and necessary to the air that you breathe in return. The Chahar Bagh, the fourfold garden. The central feature of every great Persian garden is water. Here before you, a rectangular pool, perhaps 20 steps long and 12 steps wide. Its surface perfectly still in the absence of wind. A mirror of the night sky. Every star reflected in its dark depths. So that you are standing between two skies, the one above and the one below, both equally deep, both equally full of light. From the center of the pool, a fountain rises. A single column of water, rising, then falling back. Its sound is the sound of the garden's heartbeat. A soft, continuous percussion, rhythmic and unhurried. The sound of water that has been falling here for centuries. The sound of water that will be falling here long after all of us are gone. From the pool, 4 channels of water flow outward, one to the north, one to the south, one to the east, one to the west, following channels of smooth stone. The channels themselves carved with small geometric patterns, fish and leaves and stars. The water slides over them, catching the moonlight, breaking it into small, dancing fragments of silver. These 4 channels divide the garden into 4 quadrants, and each quadrant is a world unto itself. In the first quadrant, the quadrant to your left as you face the pool, there is a rose garden, roses of every color that Persia ever bred, deep crimson roses, the color of arterial life, the color of dawn, pale pink roses that are almost white, almost transparent in the moonlight, white roses whose petals glow with their own soft luminescence, and the rarest of all, the black rose, which is not truly black but the deepest, most saturated purple, a color so deep it seems to absorb the moonlight rather than reflect it. The Persian rose. Its history is ancient beyond reckoning. Roses were cultivated in the gardens of the Achaemenid kings, the great kings Cyrus and Darius who built the first Persian Empire, 500 years before the Common Era. They had rose gardens, and the roses bred in those gardens were carried along the trade routes of the ancient world, west to Greece and Rome, east to India and China. Persian roses changed the gardening of the world. In the Shahnameh, rose gardens appear in moments of peace and beauty. In the stories of great kings, a garden of roses signals a reign of justice and abundance. When the roses wither and the garden falls into neglect, it signals something darker. A kingdom in decline. A ruler who has forgotten what matters. The garden is always an indicator of the inner state of the kingdom, and the inner state of the soul. The roses in this garden are blooming. The roses in this garden are very much alive. And their scent. Oh, their scent. Breathe it in. The scent of Persian roses on a summer night. Sweet and complex and deep. Not the thin, one-dimensional sweetness of a perfume, but the full, living sweetness of a flower. With layers. Top notes of lightness and freshness. Middle notes of deep warmth and honey. Base notes of something ancient and green and earthy. The scent of life at its most generous. In the great Persian tradition of making attar of roses. Rosewater and rose oil. The scent of the rose was captured and preserved. Persian rosewater was one of the most prized commodities along the Silk Road. Caravans carried it from the rose-growing valleys of Fars province. From Kashan. From Gamsar. Across the deserts and mountains to China and Constantinople and beyond. Persian rose oil. The attar of roses. Was used in medicine and perfumery and cooking. A few drops added to a dish. A few drops added to a bath. A few drops added to the ink of a calligrapher. So that the written words would carry within them the ghost of the rose's beauty. You stand among the roses now. Their petals brushing softly against your hands as you walk between the bushes. So soft. Like the softest imaginable velvet. Like sleep touching your eyes. In the second quadrant, the one to your right, there is a grove of fruit trees. Pomegranate, quince, pear, fig, and the great spreading mulberry, whose dark fruit in summer stains the hands and lips, whose leaves were the food of the silkworms. Silk, Persian silk, the fabric of the Shahnameh's most beautiful descriptions. The royal garments of kings and queens. The tent linings of great camps. The carpets of palace floors. All woven from the silk that mulberry trees made possible. The pomegranate trees. They deserve a particular moment of attention. Because the pomegranate is perhaps the most deeply symbolic fruit in Persian culture. Its skin, red as sunset, or golden, or pale as dawn, hiding within it hundreds of jewel-like seeds, each one encased in a translucent red sac filled with sweet juice, each one a world unto itself. In Persian mythology and poetry, the pomegranate is a symbol of fertility, of abundance, of the hidden richness of life. Its many seeds suggest the multiplicity of life's gifts. The unexpected depths within what seems from outside to be a simple, closed thing. Ferdowsi's Shahnameh is itself something like a pomegranate, closed within its leather cover. It seems from outside to be a single thing. A book, but open it, and hundreds of stories pour out, each one a jewel, each one filled with its own sweetness, each one connected to all the others. In a great, intricate web of narrative. The fruit trees are heavy with late summer abundance tonight. The pomegranates have split open on the branch, their seeds glistening in the moonlight. Red jewels against the dark leaves. The figs are soft and dark, ready to fall at the slightest touch. The quinces glow yellow and gold, their skin still holding the warmth of the afternoon sun. A peacock walks between the trees. He walks with great, unhurried dignity, his head moving forward and back with each step, like a man who is very sure of where he is going, even though he appears to be going nowhere in particular. His tail trails behind him, folded now, held just above the ground, the eyes of his tail feathers gleaming softly in the moonlight. Each one a perfect iridescent circle of blue and green and gold. In the courts of the great Persian kings, and in the gardens of their palaces, peacocks were kept as living ornaments, living symbols of the beauty and abundance of a prosperous reign. Persian miniature painters loved to paint them. A peacock in a garden was not merely a bird. It was a statement about the quality of the life lived in that space. A testament to the gardener's art, to the gardener's philosophy. The peacock pauses. He looks at you with one great golden eye. There is something ancient and unconcerned in his gaze, as if he has seen everything. Kings and conquerors and poets and pilgrims, all passing through his garden, and none of them have altered his essential peacock nature. He remains, preening, walking, being magnificent, in the slow, patient way that peacocks have always been magnificent. Then he moves on, into the shadow of the fig trees, and you watch him go. In the third quadrant, the one that faces the garden's eastern wall, there is a shaded walkway, a long pergola covered with climbing vines, grapevines, the grapes still on the vine, small and dark, not yet fully ripe but swelling with the sweetness that will come. And along this pergola, between the stone pillars that support it, there are benches, low stone benches with cushions of silk brocade. The cushions are deep green, the color of new leaves, the color of spring, and they are thick and soft, the kind of cushion that seems to invite you to sit down and stay for a very long time. On one of these benches, there is a book, a small book, left as if someone has just stepped away and will return shortly. Its pages are open to somewhere near the middle, the spine curled slightly from much reading. This is a well-loved book, a book that has been opened many, many times. You sit down beside it. The cushion receives you with great softness and generosity. The fabric of it is cool at first, and then warms to your body's warmth. Your weight settles into it, and you feel the particular luxury of a beautiful seat in a beautiful garden, on a beautiful night. Above you, through the grape leaves, the stars that the ancient Persians catalogued and named and studied for centuries. The great astronomers of the Islamic Golden Age, among whom Persian scholars played a foundational role. Al-Biruni from Khorasan, Omar Khayyam from Nishaper. Khayyam, who was not only a poet, but one of the great mathematicians and astronomers of his age, who calculated the length of the year with extraordinary accuracy, who proposed a calendar reform, who observed the stars with the patience of a man who understood that the universe does not give up its secrets quickly. And yet Khayyam is remembered now mostly for his rubaiyat, his quatrains, those small, perfect four-line poems about wine and roses and the passage of time, the impermanence of all things, the wisdom of enjoying this moment, because this moment is the only moment we have. And there is something in that wisdom that speaks very directly to you tonight. This moment, this garden, this cushion, this book, these stars, this is the moment. And it is enough. More than enough. You look at the open book beside you. It is a small anthology. Selections from Persian poetry. You can see from the layout that it contains not just Ferdowsi but others. Hafez, Rumi, Sa'di, the great constellation of Persian poets, who together form one of the most extraordinary literary traditions in human history. Sa'di of Shiraz, who wrote the Gulistan, the Rose Garden, a collection of stories and poems that begins with a passage about a garden, the way a book about the world often begins with a garden, because the garden is the world made small and legible, the world at human scale, The world as it might be if we tended it with care. Saudi spent decades traveling. From his home in Shiraz to Baghdad and Damascus and Jerusalem and Arabia and India. He walked the roads of the medieval world, meeting people, listening to stories, observing the ways of merchants and kings and mystics and fools. And he brought all of that back to Shiraz, and poured it into his writing. In the Gulistan, the stories are often set in gardens. The garden is the place where wisdom is exchanged, where travelers meet, where teacher and student sit together in the shade, and the conversation flows as freely as the fountain. The garden is the ideal space for thinking and talking and being. An enclosed paradise where the harshness of the outside world is softened, where the dust of the road is washed away by cool water, where the noise of the marketplace is replaced by the song of birds and water, where you can sit and think and be. A moth drifts past you in the warm night air, its wings pale and soft, beating with that characteristic trembling urgency that moths have, as if they know that they do not have long, as if they are trying to taste everything before the night is over. The moth is another beloved symbol in Persian poetry. The moth and the candle. The moth drawn irresistibly to the light, knowing the flame will consume it, but going anyway, because the light is so beautiful that the moth cannot resist, cannot bring itself to stay safe in the darkness when such beauty burns. In Sufi poetry, the moth is the soul, and the flame is the divine. And the story of the moth and the candle is the story of the soul's longing for union with God, a longing so powerful that it overrides the instinct for self-preservation. Because what is self-preservation when set against the beauty of the beloved? Adar of Nishapur, the great Sufi poet who came before Rumi, wrote The Conference of the Birds, in which 30 birds journey through 7 valleys seeking the great bird Simorg, their king, their divine ideal. The Simorg, that mythical bird of the Shahnameh, who raised the hero Zal, who appears at moments of great difficulty to offer wisdom and healing feathers. The Simorg who at the end of Adar's poem is revealed to be within each bird. Simorg, 30 birds. For the Simorg is both the goal of the journey and the one who is journeying, both the seeker and the sought. The moth drifts away toward the 4th quadrant of the garden, where the oil lamps burn, and you watch it go with a feeling of deep warmth. That small, soft creature, following its nature completely, without apology, without hesitation. In the 4th quadrant, the one closest to the great library building, there is an open pavilion, a small structure with 4 arched openings on 4 sides. Its roof is a shallow dome of fired brick, decorated on the inside with a mosaic of blue and turquoise tiles that glow in the lamplight with a deep, cool luminescence, like the inside of a great shell, like the inside of the sky. Inside the pavilion, a low table, and around the table, cushions. On the table, a clay pitcher of cool water, small glasses of cut crystal, a bowl of dried rose petals, their scent still present though muted by drying, like the memory of a perfume, a presence that exists between fully there and gone. On the table also, several more books, small manuscripts, the kind that a scholar or poet might carry, personal working copies, pages covered in annotations, words underlined, marginal notes in tiny, careful script, books that have been read and reread and argued with and returned to, books that bear the marks of a real relationship between reader and text. You sit in the pavilion, on a cushion, facing outward, looking across the garden. From here you can see everything. The rose garden, the fruit grove, the vine-covered pergola, the central pool with its fountain, the stars above, the stars below in the water, and the library, its carved stone facade, its high windows glowing amber, and in the library windows, you can just make out the shapes of the shelves, the ranks of books, rising into the darkness above the lamplight. The great libraries of the medieval Persian world were extraordinary institutions. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad, which was not strictly Persian but which was filled with Persian scholars and scholarship, attracted learned people from across the known world, translators and mathematicians and physicians and philosophers, working together to translate the wisdom of Greece and India and Persia into Arabic, and then to add to it, to correct and extend and question it. But the Persian libraries, the royal libraries of the Samanid dynasty in Bokhara, where the young scholar Ibn Sina, who we know in the West as Avicenna, spent time as a young man reading everything in the library's vast collection. Ibn Sina, who wrote the Canon of Medicine, the great medical encyclopedia that was used as a textbook in European universities until the 17th century. Ibn Sina, who was so voracious a reader that he claimed to have read the entire library by the time he was done, or the library of the Safavid court in Isfahan, built centuries later, when Persia was experiencing another great flowering of art and literature and architecture, when Isfahan itself was called the half of the world, Nesfi Jahan, a city so beautiful, so full of palaces and mosques and gardens and bazaars, that travelers from Europe came and stared and wrote long letters home saying simply, "I cannot describe it. You must see it for yourself." The Imam Square in Isfahan, one of the largest public squares in the world, surrounded by the Great Friday Mosque, the Ali Kappa Palace, the Sheikh Lotfallah Mosque, and the Grand Bazaar, with a polo ground in the center, where the Safavid kings played polo in view of their subjects. The Sheikh Lotfallah Mosque, with its dome of yellow and cream tiles, that changes color through the day as the light changes. Pale gold in the morning, ivory at noon, deep amber in the afternoon light. A dome that seems to have been made not from fired clay but from condensed light itself. And inside, the interior of that dome, a pattern of arabesques spiraling inward toward the apex, converging on a point of light at the center. So intricate, so perfectly calculated, that when you stand directly beneath it and look up, the spiraling pattern seems to rotate, to turn slowly above you, like the patterns on the surface of a dream. You are dreaming now, or nearly dreaming. The garden and the library and the book and the starlight are all mixing together, the way colors mix in water, slowly, without sharp edges. Breathe. Just breathe. Let the garden hold you. Let the night hold you. Let the story be all around you. A breeze comes. The first breeze of the night. Very gentle. Barely a movement of air, but enough to stir the rose petals, to make the candle flames in the pavilion bend and flutter, to bring across the garden the sound of the fountain more clearly, its voice rising in the soft movement of air, and then falling again as the breeze passes. The cypress trees at the garden's edge sway very slightly. Those tall, dark sentinels, moving almost imperceptibly, their forms a deeper darkness against the dark sky, their silhouettes so perfectly vertical, so perfectly still even in the breeze. as if they are made not of wood and leaf but of pure intention. The intention of growing upward. Always upward. Ferdowsi loved the cypress. He wrote of it repeatedly in the Shahnameh, as the symbol of the beautiful and the dignified. He described great heroes and beautiful women with the comparison of the cypress. Standing tall, moving gracefully, rooted but reaching. The cypress as an emblem of the best of what a person can be. The great cypress trees of Persia are extraordinary. Some of them are among the oldest living things on earth. The Sarvia Barku, the cypress of Abarku in Yazd province, is believed to be between 4,000 and 5,000 years old. 4 or 5,000 years old. Standing in the desert. Alive. Its trunk wide as a room. Its branches still bearing fresh green needles every spring. Older than most human civilizations. Older than writing itself in most parts of the world. A living connection to an unimaginably distant past. What has that tree witnessed? What armies have passed in the valley below it? What caravans of merchants? What kings riding through on their way to somewhere important? What ordinary people walking to the next village? What children playing in its shade across hundreds of generations? The tree has seen all of it. And grown. And remained. There is deep comfort in the thought of that tree. In the thought that some things simply persist. Not struggling against time. Not fighting it. Simply growing in the only direction available to them. Upward. Into the light. Year by year. Century by century. You think of Ferdowsi. Working for 30 years. Not struggling against time either. Simply growing. Word by word. Couplet by couplet. Building something that would outlast the patrons who ignored him. That would outlast the kings who failed to honor it. That would outlast the empires that rose and fell in the centuries after he died. There is a story about Ferdowsi and the Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, to whom the Shahnameh was dedicated. Sultan Mahmud was a powerful ruler, a great patron of art and literature in some ways, but also a man of limited appreciation when it came to Ferdowsi's gift. The story goes that Mahmud promised the poet a rich reward for the Shahnameh. A gold coin for every couplet. 60,000 gold coins. A fortune. But when the work was complete, Mahmud sent only silver. A fraction of what was promised. And an insult added to injury. Ferdowsi was furious. The story says he gave the coins away to a bath attendant and a beer seller, dividing the Sultan's paltry payment between two of the most humble of professions. As if to say, this is what your appreciation is worth. And then he fled the city, writing a bitter poem of reproach to the Sultan. A poem that has survived, because truth tends to survive. But here is what also survived. The Shahnameh itself. Sultan Mahmud is a footnote. A small, somewhat embarrassing figure in the story of Persian literature. A man who had the chance to be remembered as the patron of one of the greatest works of all time, and chose pettiness instead. While Ferdowsi, poor Ferdowsi, who died without receiving his due reward, lives forever. In every copy of the Shahnameh, in every reader who opens the book, in every garden where someone reads his lines aloud in the summer night. The stars are very bright. You look up at them through the opening in the pavilion's roof. That small circle of sky, framed by the dome's interior tiles. The stars visible through that frame look like a painting. The most perfect painting ever made. Points of light scattered by a divine hand across deep blue velvet. Persian astronomers gave names to many of these stars. names that are still used today in the formal astronomical catalogue. Aldebaran, from the Arabic Aldabaran, the follower, because it follows the Pleiades across the night sky. Betelgeuse, from the Arabic Ibt al-Jawza, the armpit of Orion. Vega, from the Arabic al-Nasr al-Waqi, the falling eagle. The names came from the Arabic of the great Islamic astronomical tradition, a tradition that was significantly shaped by Persian scientists, who translated the ancient Greek texts of Ptolemy, and corrected them, and extended them, and built upon them, creating a new astronomical science that was more accurate and more comprehensive than anything that had come before. Al-Biruni, that great scholar from Khorasan, born in Khwarezm in the year 973, he measured the circumference of the earth. He calculated the height of mountains using a method of remarkable elegance. He wrote on geography and history and mineralogy and pharmacology. He learned Sanskrit so that he could read Indian texts in their original language. He was one of the most learned men who ever lived. A mind so capacious and curious and rigorous that even now, 1,000 years later, his works reward careful reading. And he was not alone. This was what the Persian intellectual tradition produced. Not isolated geniuses, but a culture of learning. A civilization in which curiosity was valued, in which books were treasured, in which libraries were built with the same care as mosques, in which a scholar was treated with the same respect as a soldier, sometimes more. The pavilion is very quiet now. The garden is very quiet. The fountain's voice is the only sound. And even the fountain seems to be speaking more softly now, as if it too is aware that the night has deepened, that the hours have moved toward their quietest point. The oil lamps on the table flicker once, twice, and then burn more steadily, their flames reflected in the surface of the crystal glasses, making small bright points of light, like stars, small stars on the table, while the real stars continue their slow wheeling overhead. You close your eyes for a moment, just a moment, and in that moment, the garden fills your other senses. The scent of roses is very close. The sound of the fountain is all around you. The warm air touches your face. And somewhere, very far away, the nightingale begins to sing again. Its voice is extraordinary in the darkness, clear and liquid and complex. A song that seems to contain within it every emotion, joy and longing and tenderness, and something that can only be called beauty. Pure beauty, distilled to its essential form and expressed in sound. The bulbul, the nightingale, called by Hafez the drunk one who tells secrets, because the nightingale sings as if it cannot help itself, as if the song must come out, as if holding it in would be a kind of death. In the gardens of Shiraz, where Hafez was born and lived and died, the nightingales sang in the rose bushes around his tomb. They still sing there today. His tomb in a garden in Shiraz, a garden called the Hafizi, where people come to sit under the cypress trees and read his poetry, and listen to the birds, and feel the presence of something larger than themselves. The Persians call this practice Fali Hafez, taking an omen from Hafez, asking a question and then opening the divan of Hafez at random, reading the poem on the page that opens, and finding within it an answer, or a comfort, or a wisdom. The book as oracle, the book as friend, the book as the voice of something that knows more than we do. There is a version of this practice you can do with any great book. Any book that was written from a deep place, with real love and real thought and real care. You can open it at random and read what is there, and find that it speaks to you, not because of magic, but because great literature speaks to the unchanging parts of human experience, the parts that are the same in every age, in every culture, in every life. The longing for beauty, the desire for wisdom, the fear of loss, the hope for love, the need to understand, the wish to be understood. All of that is in the Shahnameh. All of that is in this garden. All of that is in this night. Open your eyes again softly. The garden is still here, patient and beautiful. The roses still blooming, the fountains still singing, the cypress trees still standing, the stars still turning slowly overhead. In the fruit grove to your right, something has moved. You look. A cat, a small gray cat, moving between the pomegranate trees with the liquid grace that cats have always had. Its eyes catching the moonlight as it turns its head to look at you. Two small mirrors of silver, watching you for a moment, with that expression that cats have. That expression which seems to say, I see you, and you are acceptable, but I have other things to attend to. And then the cat moves on, slipping between two roots and disappearing into the shadow of the fig tree. Cats have lived in Persian homes and libraries and gardens for thousands of years. The great libraries of the medieval Islamic world often had cats. Practical creatures, who kept the mice from eating the manuscripts. Guards of the written word. Patient, nocturnal sentinels, who prowled the shelves in the small hours when everyone else was sleeping, making sure the stories survived. The cat that just passed through the garden is perhaps the descendant of those ancient library cats. Or perhaps it is the same spirit, moving through time as it moves through the garden, without urgency, without effort, simply being what it is, in the place where it belongs. You look back at the central pool. The fountain is still rising, its column of water catching the moonlight at the top of its arc, and then falling back, again and again. An endless, gentle cycle, water rising from the earth, touching the sky, and returning. This is the nature of the Persian garden. It is not a wild place. It is not untamed nature. It is a collaboration between human intention and natural generosity. The gardener who designs the channels and the fountain and the plantings, working with water and soil and seed and light, not against them, with them. The garden as a conversation between what humans dream and what the earth can offer, and at its best, at its very best. The Persian garden is a paradise. The word itself tells us this. Paradisa, Old Persian. Pyri meaning around. Disa meaning wall. A walled enclosure. A garden enclosed. A paradise. The Jews took the word from the Persians during the Babylonian captivity, and it became pards in Hebrew. An orchard or garden. And eventually, through Greek and Latin, paradise, the word we use in English for the highest state of happiness, the state that every garden, every good garden, attempts to recreate. What a gift! That the Persian vision of a walled garden, the vision of beauty and order and water and shade, gave us the very word for the highest good. The night is very deep now. The moon has moved across a quarter of the sky since you came into the garden. Its light has changed in quality. Higher in the sky now. More direct. The shadows it casts are shorter and crisper. The garden more fully lit than it was, and yet somehow more dreamy. The roses are silver in this fuller moonlight. Even the red ones are silver, their daytime colors washed away by the monochrome magic of the moon. Everything in the garden is now some shade of silver or dark blue or deepest shadow. A world drained of color, and yet more beautiful for it, as if the reduction of color reveals a more essential beauty. The beauty of form, of texture, of the relationships between light and shadow. You have been sitting in this garden for a long time, or perhaps only a few breaths. Time moves differently here. You mentioned this before, but it bears repeating because it keeps being true. Time in the garden moves with the fountain's rhythm, with the nightingale's song, not with clocks, not with urgency. And you feel it, the release of time pressure, the gentle unclenching that happens when you truly stop, when you truly let the moment be enough. Breathe that in, that release, that unclenching. Let it move through you from your shoulders to your hands, from your chest to your belly, from your hips to your feet. Let every part of you release the grip. The gentle, unnecessary grip we keep on things. Good. The fountain sings. The roses breathe. The cypress trees stand. And you rest. From somewhere deep in the garden, from behind the pomegranate trees and the fig grove, there is a sound. Very faint. Almost imaginary. Music. The sound of a stringed instrument. A tar, or perhaps a cedar. The cedar with its delicate, resonant voice. 3 strings, or 4 if it has been modified in the modern style. Plucked with the nail of the right index finger. A sound that is both intimate and ancient. A sound that carries within it the whole history of Persian music. The great tradition of Persian classical music. The radif. The system of musical modes and compositions that stretches back centuries. The dastgah. The musical modes. Each one associated with a particular emotional state. A particular time of day or night. A particular season. Sure, the mode of longing. Often played in the evening or at night. The mode that carries within it the feeling of reaching for something beautiful that is just beyond reach. The music from the garden sounds like sure. It sounds like longing made gentle. Like the ache of beauty that you feel when something is so good that it makes you a little sad. Because you know it cannot last. Because you know that this moment too will pass. Because you know that everything beautiful must eventually end. But here is what Hafez knew. Here is what Ferdowsi knew. Here is what every Persian poet who ever sat in a garden and listened to the water and smelled the roses knew. The fact that something ends does not make it less real. Does not make it less valuable. Does not diminish the beauty of this moment. This moment is complete in itself. This garden is complete in itself. This night is complete in itself. And when the morning comes, and the colors return, and the birds begin their dawn songs, and the dew forms on the rose petals, and the world starts moving again, the garden will not be gone. It will only have changed. As everything changes. As everything must change. But underneath the change, the essence remains. The water still flows. The roots still hold. The stories are still there. Waiting. The music fades. A last note. Hovering in the night air for a moment. Then gone. And in the silence that follows. A deeper silence. A more complete quiet. That has absorbed the music and become richer for it. You rest in that silence. Your breath is very slow now. Your body very still. The garden is all around you. Its scents and sounds wrapping you like the softest blanket. In a moment, when you are ready, you will return to the library. You will return to the book, to its glowing pages, to its patient lamplight. But not yet. Not quite yet. Rest here a little longer. In the garden between the pages, the fountain sings its one endless note. The roses breathe their ancient scent. The cypress trees stand their patient vigil. The stars turn their slow wheel overhead. And you are here. Perfectly here. Perfectly present. In this garden that is also a book. In this night that is also a dream. In this moment that is also forever. Rest. Just rest. The book is open. The garden is breathing. The night is deep and soft and very, very kind. Rest now. In a moment, when you are ready, you will return to the library. You will return to the book, to its glowing pages, to its patient lamplight. But not yet. Not quite yet. Rest here a little longer. In the garden between the pages, the fountain sings its one endless note. The roses breathe their ancient scent. The cypress trees stand their patient vigil. The stars turn their slow wheel overhead. And you are here. Perfectly here. Perfectly present. In this garden that is also a book. In this night that is also a dream. In this moment that is also forever. Rest. Just rest. The book is open. The garden is breathing. The night is deep and soft and very, very kind. Rest now. Chapter 3. The Hall of Endless Stories. You are drifting. Very gently drifting. Like a leaf on the surface of still water. Not sinking. Not rising. Just resting on the surface. Carried very slowly. By a current so gentle it can barely be called movement at all. The garden is still with you. Its fragrance is still with you. The rose, the jasmine, the cool mineral scent of running water. All of it still present. Like something you carry inside you. And now, very gently, the library calls you back. Not with urgency. Not with insistence. Simply with warmth. The warmth of its lamps seen through the carved stone windows. The amber light falling across the garden path. Drawing you back the way firelight draws you on a cold night. Not forcing you. Just offering. You walk back along the garden path. Your footsteps very quiet on the smooth stone. The fountain grows louder as you pass it. Its voice rising for just a moment. As if it is saying goodbye. Or perhaps hello. The carved wooden door of the library is slightly open. The warm amber light spilling out through the crack. A narrow bright line against the cool darkness of the garden. You push the door open gently. And step inside. But the library you step into is not quite the same library you left. Or perhaps it is more itself than it was before. More fully what it always was. As if in your time in the garden, something has deepened. Something has expanded. The room is larger than you remembered. Or perhaps it is the same size, but you are seeing it more fully. The shelves that were tall before are taller now. Rising up into a darkness that the oil lamps cannot fully reach. An upper darkness that hints at further shelves. Further books. Stories extending upward beyond what the eye can follow. And the shelves extend further back into the room as well. What seemed from the doorway to be a single chamber reveals itself now to be a hall. A long hall, with smaller rooms opening off it on both sides. Doorways curtained with deep green silk. The curtains moving very slightly in some imperceptible current of air, as if the rooms behind them are breathing. You walk deeper into the hall. The carved wooden table with its illuminated Shahnameh is still there, still warm beneath its cluster of oil lamps. The book still open, still patient, still waiting. You stop at the table and look down at the open page. The calligraphy flows. The illuminated borders glow. The miniature painting in the lower corner of the page seems brighter than before. Or perhaps your eyes have adjusted to the warmth of this room, and can see what was always there. You run your gaze along the calligraphy, line by beautiful line, and even without understanding every word, you can hear the rhythm of it, the meter of Ferdowsi's verse. The Shahnameh is written in a meter called motakarab, a meter built around units of one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable, repeated in a pattern that creates a forward momentum, a walking rhythm, the rhythm of a journey, of someone moving through the world, encountering what they encounter, but moving always forward, with purpose, with intention. The motakarab is considered particularly suited to epic poetry, to stories of heroes and journeys and great events, because its rhythm carries you forward. It doesn't pause or deliberate. It walks, and you walk with it. And yet even walking forward, even in a meter of movement and journey, Ferdowsi achieved an extraordinary tenderness, an extraordinary stillness in certain passages. Passages of such delicacy and quiet beauty, that the meter seems almost to hold its breath, to slow the walking rhythm to a drift, a floating. Those passages are the ones that readers have always loved best. The passages where the epic stops being epic, and becomes simply a human voice, speaking quietly, about what it means to be here, in this world, in this life, for such a short time. You move away from the table, deeper into the hall, past the shelves of books, each shelf a different world. The books are arranged with great care, not alphabetically, not by date, but by something more subtle, by affinity. Books that belong together because they are in conversation with each other. A great collection of manuscripts about history here. Chronicles of Persian kings from the Achaemenids to the Sassanids. Their spines pressed together in the intimate way of books that have shared a shelf for a long time. The Achaemenid Empire, the first great Persian empire, founded by Cyrus the Great in the 6th century before the Common Era. Cyrus, who is celebrated even in the Hebrew Bible as the liberator, the ruler who freed the Jewish people from their Babylonian captivity and allowed them to return to their homeland and rebuild their temple. Cyrus, who issued what is sometimes called the first human rights document, the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay cylinder inscribed with a declaration of his policies. Policies of tolerance and respect for the customs and religions of the peoples he conquered. The Cyrus Cylinder is in the British Museum now. Its cuneiform text still legible after more than 2,500 years. A small clay object, containing a great idea. That power exercised with mercy and respect is more durable than power exercised with cruelty. Darius the Great, who came after Cyrus, who built the great palace complex at Persepolis. Takhti Jamshid, the throne of Jamshid, named for the mythical king of the Shahnameh, because the Persians of Darius's time already felt connected to those ancient legendary rulers. already reaching back to claim them as their ancestors, already weaving history and legend into a single seamless fabric, just as Ferdowsi would do again, 1,000 years later. Persepolis, the remains of which still stand in Fars province, the great stone columns, their capitals carved with bulls and horses and lotus flowers, the staircases carved with procession after procession of tribute-bearers, representatives of every nation of the empire, coming with their gifts, each group in their own dress, Armenians with horses, Babylonians with cloth, Egyptians with vases, a visual catalogue of the diversity of that great empire. Persepolis was burned by Alexander of Macedon in 330 before the Common Era. Whether deliberately or accidentally is still debated by historians, but its destruction is one of the great losses of the ancient world. Not just the loss of the buildings themselves, but the loss of what they represented. A vision of a diverse and ordered world. And yet, something survived. The stone survived. The carvings survived. The memory survived. And the stories survived. The oral traditions that eventually found their way into the Shahnameh, preserving the memory of those kings, of their courts and their wisdom and their follies. Long after the stones of Persepolis were covered by the dust of centuries, you continue walking deeper into the hall, and you pass through one of the silk-curtained doorways. The room you enter is smaller, more intimate, lit by a single large oil lamp suspended from the ceiling. Its light steady and warm, casting the room in deep amber. The walls of this room are covered not with bookshelves but with paintings. Miniature paintings, set in frames carved from walnut wood, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, arranged so closely together that the wall itself is invisible beneath them. A wall entirely of images. You move slowly along the wall, looking at each painting. The first is a painting of a garden, the kind of garden you just left, rendered in exquisite detail. Each rose individually painted, each leaf individually placed. The central fountain a perfect circle of silver paint on blue. The cypress trees their characteristic dark triangles. The people in the garden tiny but perfectly observed. A woman reading, a man playing a cedar, a child chasing a peacock, a servant carrying a tray of fruit. Each figure perhaps the size of a fingernail, and yet each one a person, with their own posture, their own expression, their own presence. This is the genius of the Persian miniature tradition. The ability to create worlds of complete believability within spaces measured in centimeters. Worlds that repay sustained attention. That give more the longer you look. That contain in their small compass more life than many much larger works. The great period of Persian miniature painting, from the 13th through the 17th centuries, produced some of the most exquisite small-scale art the world has ever known. The workshops of Herat and Tabriz and Shiraz and Isfahan, each with their own style, their own palette, their own approach to the eternal questions of perspective and space and the representation of the human figure. The Herat school, associated with the great master Kamal-ud-Din Behzad, who worked in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, under the Timurid rulers who made Herat one of the most brilliant cultural centers of the medieval world. Behzad, whose paintings were so admired that the Safavid Shah Ismail, when he captured Herat, made a point of bringing Behzad to his court. Behzad, who transformed whatever he painted, who brought to every image a quality of psychological depth and subtle observation, that lifted the miniature from illustration to art of the highest order. The painting before you now. You are quite certain it is in the style of Bezaad's school. The way the figures stand. Each one slightly different from the others. Each one an individual. Not a type. The way the garden space is arranged. Not with Western perspective, but with the elevated viewpoint of Persian painting. Looking down slightly into the space, so that you can see the full carpet of the garden. The full pattern of the beds and paths and water channels. A perspective that is not about illusion, but about full comprehension. About seeing everything at once. The God's eye view, or the view of the gardener who knows every inch of their garden. The next painting shows a library interior, not unlike the one you are in. Scholars seated on the floor with books in their laps. A reader leaning close to a text with evident concentration. An older scholar pointing to a passage for a younger one. Books everywhere. On shelves. On the floor. In hands. Propped against walls. The room almost overflowing with them. And the scholar figures surrounded by this abundance of books. Looking not overwhelmed but nourished. The way people look when they are exactly where they are supposed to be. In the medieval Islamic world, the scholar was a figure of great prestige. The pursuit of knowledge was considered a religious duty as well as a personal virtue. The famous hadith, "Seek knowledge even unto China," attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, was taken deeply seriously by the scholars of the medieval Persian world. They traveled. They corresponded. They accumulated and translated and synthesized. They built institutions, libraries and observatories and hospitals and schools. The madrasas, the great schools of the medieval Islamic world, were institutions of remarkable sophistication, teaching not only religious subjects but mathematics and astronomy and philosophy and medicine and law. A curriculum that would be recognizable to a modern university student. Because the modern university, the Western university tradition, owes more to these medieval Islamic institutions than is often acknowledged. The great library of Córdoba in Moorish Spain, in the 10th century at its height, is said to have contained over 400,000 volumes. At a time when the largest libraries in Christian Europe might contain a few thousand. The Umayyad caliphs who built that library, and the scholars who filled it and worked in it, were part of a civilization-wide commitment to knowledge and books. A commitment that was shared by the Persian scholarly tradition, and that left behind a permanent transformation of human learning. You move to the next painting. This one is different from the others. This one is not a scene of courtly life or garden beauty. This one is a landscape. Pure landscape. A mountain range at sunset. The mountains rendered in layers of receding color. The peaks in the far distance pale gold and violet. The middle ground a deep green. The foreground the rich ochre of autumn grass. And through the valley between the mountains, a river, silver in the last light, winding with the effortless grace of all rivers toward whatever sea it seeks. This is the landscape of Khorasan. You feel certain of it. The particular quality of light. The particular shape of those mountains. The particular color of that sky. A sky of extraordinary depth and clarity. The sky of high altitude and dry air. The sky that Ferdowsi looked at every day of his life in Tus. Tus today is mostly ruins. The great medieval city that was Ferdowsi's home. Destroyed by the Mongol invasion of the 13th century. A destruction so complete that the city never fully recovered. But outside the town of Tu in Khorasan province, there is a tomb. A great domed structure, rebuilt and restored over the centuries, containing the remains of the poet. The tomb of Ferdowsi is a place of pilgrimage. People come from across Iran and from abroad to stand before it and recite passages from the Shahnameh, to leave flowers, to sit in the gardens that surround it, and think about the man who spent 30 years in that landscape of high skies and mountain distance, weaving the epic of a civilization. Near the tomb, Ferdowsi's own words are inscribed in stone. I have worked much pain in these 30 years, yet through this Persian tongue I have revived the world. He knew, even in his lifetime, that what he had created would endure. He said so explicitly in the Shahnameh's conclusion. He knew that the poem would outlive him, would outlive the kingdoms and empires of his age, would be read when everyone he knew was dust. This is not arrogance. This is the particular confidence of a person who has done something real, something true, something built not from ambition but from love. Ferdowsi loved the Persian language, with a love that was not merely aesthetic but existential. He saw the language as the vessel of his people's identity, of their history, of their way of seeing the world. And he knew that a vessel must be cared for, must be used, must be polished with the cloth of great literature, or it will dull, or crack, or be set aside in favor of something shinier and newer. He saved the language. The historians and linguists of Persian are unanimous on this point. Ferdowsi's Shahnameh was so widely read and so deeply loved that it became the standard of literary Persian for generations. Its vocabulary, its grammar, its imagery and metaphors became the shared inheritance of everyone who wrote in Persian afterward. Even today, modern Persian speakers can read the Shahnameh with only moderate difficulty, because the language has remained anchored to what Ferdowsi wrote, anchored to those 60,000 couplets that one man wrote in one house in Tus, over 30 years, 1,000 years ago. You turn away from the paintings and notice for the first time a desk in the corner of the room, a scribe's desk, low and slanted, the surface of pale wood, worn smooth by long use. On the desk, a half-finished page. The calligraphy has been started. Several lines in beautiful Nastaliq. But the scribe has left, stepped away, gone for a moment, or perhaps longer, beside the page. The tools of the scribe's art. An ink pot of dark blue glazed ceramic. A lid slightly to one side. The ink within it very black and faintly iridescent in the lamplight, like the surface of a still pond on a moonless night. Several reed pens. The calamus, arranged in a case of tooled leather, each one cut slightly differently, for different sizes of script, different weights of stroke, the nibs cut at precise angles. The work of a craftsman who understands that the tool is the extension of the intention. A small knife, the penknife, for cutting and recutting the nibs, keeping them sharp and true, because a worn nib produces letters that have lost their definition, their clarity. A penknife that keeps the pen sharp, keeps the writing clear. A burnisher, a smooth, curved tool of agate stone, for polishing the paper before writing, closing the fibers, creating a surface so smooth that the ink flows without hesitation, without catching, without bleeding into the paper's texture. An ivory bone folder, for creasing and folding pages, making the paper do exactly what is needed of it, without tearing, without wrinkling, You look at these tools with a feeling of deep recognition. They are the tools of a craftsperson who loves their work. Not merely a tradesperson working for pay, but someone who has made the art of writing their devotion, their spiritual practice, their life's work. The great calligraphers of the Persian tradition were also often poets, or scholars, or mystics, or some combination of all three, because the act of writing, of inscribing meaning into visible form, was understood as an act that engaged the whole person, not just the hand, but the mind, the heart, the soul. There is a concept in Arabic and Persian aesthetic philosophy called ihsan, often translated as excellence or beauty, but with a deeper meaning than either translation captures. Ihsan is the quality of doing something as if God is watching, or more precisely, as if the act itself deserves the full attention of the highest possible awareness. Doing something, not just correctly, not just skillfully, but with your whole being present, with the full weight of your attention and care and love. A calligrapher practicing ihsan writes each letter as if it is the most important letter ever written, as if someone's life depends on it being perfectly beautiful. Not because someone's life literally depends on it, but because beauty at that level requires that kind of attention, requires that kind of love. You sit down at the scribe's desk, not to write, just to sit, to feel what it is to be in this position, facing the page, with these tools at hand, in this room, in this quiet. The ink pot is open, the reed pen is there, the paper is ready, and you understand something, that the blank page is not absence. The blank page is potential. Every possible word, every possible sentence, every possible story exists within the blank page, all of them at once, waiting for the hand that will choose. This is the mystery at the heart of all writing and all creation, that choosing one thing means releasing all the others, that every word written is 1,000 words not written, and yet the choosing is what makes a thing real, what brings it from potential into actual, from the infinite into the particular. Ferdowsi chose. For 30 years, he chose, word after word, line after line. He chose the 60,000 couplets from the infinite number of couplets that he didn't write. And in those choices, the Shahnameh came into being. You rest your hands on the edge of the desk. The wood is smooth and cool. The lamp burns steadily. The room is very quiet. From somewhere in the hall outside, a sound, very soft. The turning of a page. You look up. Through the silk curtain of the doorway, you can see into the main hall. And there at the long table, beneath the oil lamps, a figure, seated, bent over a book, reading. The figure is not threatening, not alarming, only there, present, a reader. You cannot see their face, only the back of a head bent over a page, the posture of deep absorption, the posture of someone who has forgotten that there is anything in the world other than the words before them. You know this posture. You have been this person. Everyone who has ever truly loved a book has been this person, bent over the page, lost in it, the world outside the words temporarily ceasing to exist. The figure turns a page, the soft sound again, and then stillness. Reading. You feel no need to go and speak to them. They are in their world. You are in yours. But they are close. The way another reader in a library is always close. In the way that matters. The way that readers are always close to each other across time and space. Because they have entered the same worlds. Have walked the same pages. Have been moved by the same words. Every reader of the Shahnameh is connected to every other reader of the Shahnameh. Across 12 centuries. A chain of illuminated attention, stretching from Ferdowsi's study in Tus to this library tonight, and beyond. You look back at the wall of miniature paintings. One more painting draws your eye. A painting you somehow missed before. Or perhaps it wasn't there before. Perhaps these rooms rearrange themselves slightly when you aren't looking. The way all very old and deeply inhabited spaces do. This painting shows a figure seated alone in a garden at night. Writing. The figure is small. The garden large and dark around them. Stars above. A single lamp at the writing table. Creating a small island of warm light in the great cool darkness of the night. The figure writing. Bent over the page. Lost in it. This is Ferdowsi. This is the 1,000 nights of Ferdowsi writing the Shahnameh. Or rather, this is the essence of those nights. Distilled to a single image. A human figure. Alone. In the dark. With a lamp. And a purpose. Writing. You feel something move through you at the sight of this image. Something that might be gratitude. Something that might be awe. Or simply recognition. The recognition of what it means to devote oneself completely to something. To give 30 years to a single act of love. This is what Ferdowsi gave. And what he got in return was 1,000 years of being read. 1,000 years of readers bending over his pages. Turning his couplets over in their minds, carrying his stories in their hearts. 1,000 years of being present in the world, not as a ghost, but as a voice, a living, breathing voice that speaks to us still. The lamp in the painting flickers, and the lamp in the room flickers too. A coincidence, or not. You rise from the scribe's desk. And you move back through the silk curtain, into the main hall. The figure at the table is still reading, still bent over the book, still present in that other world. You walk past them quietly, not wanting to disturb, and you move deeper into the hall, to where the shelves begin again. Here the books are of a different kind. These are not illuminated manuscripts. These are the great texts of Persian science, of medicine and mathematics and astronomy. The Canon of Medicine by Ibn Sina. Thick volumes, their pages dense with text and diagrams. A work so comprehensive that it served as the primary medical textbook in European universities for 600 years. From the 12th century to the 18th. 600 years. The Zij-i-Ilkhani. The astronomical tables compiled by Nasir al-Din al-Tusi at the Maraga Observatory. Founded in what is now northwestern Iran. In the 13th century. After the Mongol conquest. Al-Tusi, who worked at the court of the Mongol Ilkhans. Not because he loved them, but because they offered him resources. Resources that allowed him to do science. To build an observatory. To compile observations. To create new mathematical models of the solar system. Models that address problems in Ptolemy's planetary theory. That had puzzled astronomers for centuries. Al-Tusi's models, through pathways that historians of science are still tracing, may have influenced Copernicus, the Polish astronomer who in 1543 proposed the heliocentric model of the solar system. The mathematical devices that Copernicus used to describe planetary motion are identical to devices that Al-Tusi and his colleague Ibn al-Shatter developed 2 centuries earlier in Maraga, in Iran. The connections across the centuries, the connections across the cultures, are everywhere, if you know to look. Further along the shelf, the works of Omar Khayyam, here not as a poet, but as a mathematician. His treatise on the classification and solution of cubic equations, a work of genuine mathematical sophistication. And next to it, his work on calendar reform, the Jalali calendar, which he helped to design for the Seljuk Sultan Malik Shah, a calendar so accurate that it had an error of only 1 day in 5,000 years. More accurate than the Gregorian calendar currently used in most of the world. This is what the Persian tradition of learning produced. Not just beautiful poetry, not just beautiful art, but beautiful science. Science pursued with the same care and attention and love that the calligraphers brought to their letters. The same devotion, the same seeking of truth. You continue along the shelves, and you pass into a second side room. This one is even more intimate than the first. Small, circular, a dome above, lit by 4 small oil lamps set in niches in the curved walls. Their light meeting in the center of the room, mixing and merging, creating a soft, even warmth. No harsh shadows, no dark corners. In this room, the shelves are lower. You can reach all the books easily. They are arranged not by subject or author, but seemingly at random, or perhaps by a logic you don't immediately perceive. You run your fingers along the spines, feeling the different textures. Smooth vellum, rough linen, soft leather, the supple binding of a much-handled book, the stiff newness of one rarely opened. You pull one from the shelf. It is small, the size of a hand, a diwan, a collection of poetry. Its cover simple, no gilded decorations, no illuminated borders, just worn dark leather, and the impression of a single word tooled into the cover. Hafez. You open it. The handwriting inside is different from the Shahnameh's formal Nastaliq. This is a more personal script, looser, more fluid. The handwriting of someone who wrote quickly, writing to capture something before it escaped. The handwriting of Hafez himself, or of someone who loved him enough to copy his words with the speed and urgency of devotion. Hafez of Shiraz, Shams-ud-Din Muhammad Hafez, born around 1315 in Shiraz, in the land of roses and nightingales, the city that was almost synonymous with Persian poetry. Hafez, who memorized the entire Quran as a young man. Hafez means one who has memorized, the Quran memorizer, and his poetry reflects that depth of Quranic learning, but also reflects the depth of Persian wine culture. The wine culture that was both literal and metaphorical, the wine of the tavern and the wine of divine intoxication, the cup held by the Saki, the beautiful cupbearer of the garden, and the cup held by the divine. Both real, both present in his poetry, both in some sense the same. Hafez wrote about wine and roses and the beloved and the dawn, about the morning bird singing in the garden, about the tears of the dew on the rose petal, about the grief of separation and the joy of union, about the folly of hypocrisy and the wisdom of the tavern, about the divine comedy of being alive. His ghazals, the short lyric poems in the form of interconnected couplets, are considered the pinnacle of Persian lyric poetry. Each ghazal a perfect and self-contained world, yet connecting to all the others through imagery and illusion and the music of the language. Hafez is the best-selling poet in Iran today. His divan in every home. His verses quoted in daily conversation. His tomb in Shiraz visited by more people than almost any other site in Iran. A poet who died in 1390, more than 600 years ago, is still the best-selling poet in his country. What does this tell us about the depth and endurance of beauty? About the capacity of true poetry to speak across time, to speak to us directly, as if the centuries between us are transparent, as if we are sitting in the same garden, under the same stars, breathing the same roses. You open the divan to a random page, and read a few lines in your mind. Even if you cannot read the Persian script, imagine the sound of it. The sound of Persian, that most beautiful of languages. Persian, Farsi, a language of extraordinary softness and musicality. A language that has been compared to music by everyone who has fallen in love with it. Its vowels long and rich, its consonants flowing, its words often built from roots of great antiquity. Roots that carry within them the memory of very old things. The word for wine in Persian is sharab, from the Arabic. But the Persian relationship with wine goes much further back, to the ancient Zoroastrian world, where the halma, the sacred ritual drink, was central to religious practice. The wine of Persian poetry is not only alcohol, it is this ancient sacred intoxication. The intoxication of being fully alive, fully present, fully open to the beauty of existence. You hold the divan for a moment, then return it to its place on the shelf. You return to the main hall, and you notice something you hadn't seen before. At the very far end of the hall, where the light is dimmest, there is a window, a high, narrow window, set deep in the thick stone wall, and through it, a view of the garden you left. You walk toward it. The window is set too high in the wall to see through easily, but by a convenient arrangement, or perhaps by design, there is a wooden step stool just below it, as if someone placed it there for exactly this purpose. You step up and look through the garden from this height, from inside the library. Looking out, the garden looks like a miniature painting, exactly like one of those perfect small worlds on the walls of the circular room. The central pool, a silver oval, the fountain rising from it, a tiny white column, the geometric patterns of the beds, clear from above, stars and hexagons of roses and herbs and low hedges, the cypress trees at the garden's edge, dark and vertical and still, and beyond the garden wall, the world, the mountains in the far distance, silver under the moon, and above them all, the night sky. The sky from this window, from this angle, is a rectangle of profound darkness, deeply studded with stars, more stars than you usually see, as if the thickness of the library walls has somehow concentrated the sky above it, made it more of itself, more vast, more deep, more full of light. You stand there for a long time, looking at the stars through the library window, the warm light of the library at your back, the cool darkness of the garden and the sky before you, standing between two worlds, the world of books and lamps and human meaning-making, and the world of sky and stars and the vast, patient universe. Both worlds. Real. Both worlds. Necessary. The great Persian astronomers understood this. That the stars and the poems, the mathematics and the calligraphy, the science and the mysticism, were not opposites, were not in conflict, were different facets of the same diamond, different languages for describing the same deep reality. The universe is beautiful, and it is comprehensible. And the fact that it is comprehensible, the fact that human minds can grasp something of its structure, can map the stars and predict their movements, can name them and understand their distances, is itself one of the most astonishing things about existence. Why should the universe be comprehensible to us? Why should mathematics work? Why should there be patterns that our minds can recognize? The Persian intellectual tradition didn't see this as a puzzle to be solved, but as a gift to be received and responded to, with curiosity and gratitude, with the making of beauty, with the writing of poems and the drawing of diagrams and the building of observatories. All of these activities, different ways of saying thank you, different ways of being present to the gift. You step down from the stool, and you walk back to the center of the hall, to the table with the open Shahnameh. The oil lamps above the table are burning a little lower now, their flames still steady but their reservoirs of oil diminishing. The light they cast is warmer and more amber than before, a deeper warmth, the warmth of a fire in its later hours, when the fierce brightness has softened into something more intimate. You look at the open page of the Shahnameh, and you notice something. The page has turned. While you were in the other rooms, while you were looking at the paintings and sitting at the scribe's desk and looking through the window, the page turned itself. Or the night turned it. Or the book decided on its own that you were ready for what comes next. The new page before you shows an image of the night, a miniature painting of a night scene, stars above, and below them, a traveler, on a road, alone, walking. The traveler's face is not visible. You can only see the back of them, the road stretching out ahead, and the stars above. But there is something in the posture, in the way the small painted figure carries itself. Something that suggests not fear, not loneliness, but peace. The peace of someone who is walking the right road, who knows where they are going, who is content with the pace of the journey. And the stars above the traveler. So many stars, each one a world, each one a sun to its own family of planets, each one telling its own stories to any who can receive them. You are the traveler. You have always been the traveler. On the road, under the stars, moving through the night toward the morning. And this library, this hall of endless stories, this garden between the pages, this is a resting place, a caravanserai of the spirit, a place to stop, to rest, to drink cool water, to feed on beauty, to let the stories come in, and then, refreshed, to walk on, the caravanserai, those remarkable Persian institutions, the roadside inns built by kings and merchants and philanthropists, spaced along the great trade routes, a day's journey apart, so that every traveler, rich or poor, noble or common, could find shelter and water and feed for their animals. At the end of each day's walk, the caravanserais were great feats of architecture and of generosity, square or rectangular buildings, with a central courtyard and a pool, Rooms arranged around the courtyard. Stables at the outer edges. A mosque or prayer room. A kitchen, often a bathhouse. They were places of extraordinary social mixing. Merchants from China and merchants from Venice might share a courtyard for a night, unable to speak each other's language, but sharing the fire, and the food, and the shelter of the same roof. The Silk Road passed through Persia. For more than 1,000 years, the great arteries of trade and cultural exchange. The routes along which not only silk and spice but also ideas and technologies and stories traveled. From China to the Mediterranean, and back again, and at every stop along that road, a caravanserai. And in every caravanserai, stories. Travelers telling each other where they had been and what they had seen. What lay ahead on the road. What the road was like through the mountains. Where water could be found. And also, what was happening in the world. What news from the east. What news from the west. The caravanserai as information exchange. As news service. As storytelling institution. The stories of the Shahnameh themselves may have traveled this way. Before Ferdowsi wrote them down. The great oral epic tradition. Storytellers who knew the legends of the old kings. Carrying those stories along the roads of the Persian world. Telling them in caravanserais and market squares and royal courts. Their voices the only preservation. Their memory the only library. Until Ferdowsi came. And wrote them down. And gave them permanence. Now you carry them. Wherever you go. You carry them inside you. The lamp above the table gutters. Just once. And you look up. The flame has recovered and burns steadily. But in that brief dimming, in that single instant of flickering, you saw the room differently. Saw how thin the light is. How much darkness surrounds it. And how the darkness is not threatening. Not cold. Not empty. But full. Full of stories. Full of everything that has ever happened. Everything that has ever been thought or felt or imagined. All of it present in the dark. The way all the Shahnameh's 60,000 couplets are present in the book. Whether or not the lamp is bright enough to read them, the stories are there. Whether or not we can see them at this moment. This is a comforting thought. A deeply comforting thought. That the beauty is there even in the darkness. That the wisdom is there even when we're too tired to access it. That the stories are there even when we are too deep in sleep to read them. Waiting. Patient as always. For the morning. For the next lamp. For the next reader. For you. You are sitting now. Not standing. You have somehow settled into the chair beside the table. The chair that is deep and comfortable, with armrests of smooth wood, and cushions of silk and a deep red the color of pomegranate seeds. You are sitting and the book is open before you, and the lamp is burning, and the hall stretches away in all directions, and the garden breathes outside, and the stars are turning above, and all of it, is here for you. The stories, the beauty, the quiet, the warmth. It is all here. It has always been here. Rest now. Let the stories hold you. Let the hall of endless stories wrap around you. Like the most ancient and beautiful blanket, woven from 6,000 years of human longing for beauty. The lamp burns. The book breathes. The hall is still. And you are exactly where you need to be. Chapter 4. Dawn upon the final page. You have been sleeping. or something very close to sleeping. A state deeper than waking and lighter than the dreamless dark. A state where the stories have been moving through you. Gently. Without urgency. The way slow water moves through deep stone channels. Carving the stone very gently. Very patiently. Over centuries. And now, something is changing. Very slowly. Very softly. The quality of the darkness is different. Not lighter yet, but different. The darkness before the dawn is its own particular darkness. Not the deep darkness of midnight. Not the velvet black of the hours before. But a darkness that has subtly thinned. A darkness through which something is beginning to press. Very gently. From the other side. The world is turning. As it always does. The great slow wheel of the earth turning toward the light. Toward another day. Another beginning. You are in the chair beside the table. The illuminated Shahnameh still open before you. The oil lamps have burned low. Very low. Their flames now tiny. Barely more than sparks. And yet somehow, the room is not darker for it. Because the darkness outside has begun to lift. The thick stone walls of the library are beginning to let in the first, most tentative, most delicate, first light of morning. Not through the windows yet. Not even as visible light. But as a quality. A presence. The presence of the coming day. Pressing gently against the night. You breathe in. Slowly. The air of the library at this hour is extraordinary. It has changed through the night. It is cooler now. Fresher. The beeswax and cedar have settled. And what remains is something purer. The essential scent of old paper and old wood and old stone. The base note of everything. The scent of time itself. In the garden outside. A sound. A single bird. The first bird of the morning. A small sound. Tentative. A single note. Then silence. Then two notes. Then silence again. The bird testing the morning. Asking whether the day is ready for song. Whether the dark has lifted enough for music to fill it. The darkness says, not quite yet. But almost. The bird waits. You look at the oil lamps. Their flames are the size of candle flames now. Small and intimate. But steady. Still steady. In their small way still holding the dark at bay. Still maintaining the warm circle of amber light over the open book. You look at the book. And you realize you have reached the final pages. How did this happen? When did the pages turn themselves? Through the night. While you rested. While the stories moved through you. The book has traveled with you. The final pages of the Shahnameh. The end of the great epic. The poem ends with the Arab conquest of Persia. The end of the Sasanian Empire. The defeat and death of the last Persian king, Yazdijerd III, who fled, and fled, across the vast territory of the old empire, finding no lasting refuge, until he was killed, in the most ignoble of circumstances, by a local miller, who wanted only to rob him, not knowing, or perhaps not caring, that the man before him was the last king of an empire that had endured for 400 years. It is a sad ending. One of the saddest in all of literature. The end of a world. And yet, Ferdowsi does not end in despair. He ends with hope. With defiance. With the statement we heard earlier. That through this Persian tongue, he has revived the world. because the poem itself is the refutation of the ending. The empire fell. The kings are gone. The palaces are dust. But the poem remains. The language remains. The stories remain. And as long as the poem remains, the kings are not entirely gone. The palaces are not entirely dust. Something of them endures. In every reader who opens the book. In every voice that recites the verses. In every lamp that burns over these pages. The Sasanian Empire, which the Shahnameh describes in its later sections, was one of the great civilizations of the ancient world, the rival and the equal of Rome and Byzantium. Its capital at Ctesiphon on the Tigris, whose great arch, the Tak Kasra, still stands today, the largest single-span brick vault ever built in the ancient world. A remnant of extraordinary ambition. The Sasanians developed art forms of great beauty. Their metalwork, silver dishes and ewers and plates covered with hunting scenes and royal portraits, scattered across the museums of the world now, testifying to the sophistication of their craft. Their textiles, the great silks of the Sasanian period, with their distinctive roundels containing paired animals, horses and deer and peacocks facing each other in perfect bilateral symmetry. These patterns spread along the Silk Road, and can be found in Byzantine churches, and in the treasuries of medieval European cathedrals. Persian patterns, embedded in the most sacred art of a different culture. The beauty crossing all boundaries, finding its way into whatever receptive space would receive it. And their literature and learning. The Sasanian court was a center of intellectual life. Philosophy and medicine and astronomy flourished there. The great physician Burzo, who traveled to India to bring back the Sanskrit text of the Panchatantra, the collection of animal fables that became the Kalila wa Dimna in Arabic, and eventually found its way into European literature as Aesop's fables. Well, not exactly Aesop, but the same deep wellspring of narrative wisdom. Stories told through animals, about human nature, about justice and cleverness and the proper conduct of life. The Panchatantra arrived in Persia via Burzo, and was preserved in Persian, and then translated into Arabic, and then into dozens of other languages. A book that has circled the world, in the way that truly essential stories always circle the world, finding their way into every tradition, because they are speaking about something that every tradition recognizes. You look at the final pages, and you see that this last section of the Shahnameh has been copied with particular care. The calligraphy here is more deliberate, more formal, as if the scribe knew this was the conclusion, and wanted to honor it. The border illumination here uses less gold, more silver, not because silver is lesser, but because silver is the color of the moon, and the moon is the light of endings, the cool, reflective light that illuminates things not with the fierce clarity of noon, but with the soft, nuanced light that shows us things differently, shows us what the blazing day obscures. Moonlight on water, moonlight on roses, moonlight on the pages of an ancient book. These are different things than their daytime versions. Not lesser, different, deeper in some ways, more full of suggestion and mystery and the gentle complexity of things seen by reflected light. You reach out and very gently turn the last pages. The paper is still firm, still bright, still holding the ink it was given centuries ago. The care of the scribes and the bookbinders, the care of everyone who has handled this book since, has preserved it, has kept it alive. The very last page. The final couplet of the Shahnameh rests at the top of this page. Below it, only the illuminated colophon. The scribe's statement. The date of completion. The name of the patron. The prayers for the reader's well-being. And then the page ends. And below the last word. The white of the parchment. A beautiful, generous white. Unmarked. That unmarked space at the end of the final page is not emptiness. It is the invitation. The space left for what comes next. For the next reader. The next story. The next beginning that always follows an ending. Because that is what the Shahnameh ultimately teaches. What all great epics ultimately teach. That endings are not final. That the story of a civilization does not end when the civilization ends. That the stories persist. That what is truly alive cannot be truly extinguished. The Arab conquest of Persia was not the end of Persia. The Persians absorbed the conquerors, transformed them, made Islamic civilization largely from Persian materials. Persian administrators and Persian scholars and Persian poets shaped the entire edifice of the Islamic Golden Age. The Islamic world of the 8th through 13th centuries was in very large measure a Persian world, written in a different language, but built on Persian foundations, with Persian hands, and then after the Mongol destruction, which was devastatingly real. Cities burned, libraries destroyed, populations slaughtered. After all of that, Persia rose again. The Ilkhan and Mongols were Persianized within generations. Their successors, the Timurids, themselves conquerors, became great patrons of Persian art and literature. The court of Timurid Herat, where Behzad painted, where the great poet Jami wrote, was one of the most brilliant cultural courts in the world. And then the Safavids, who made Persia again into a great empire, who made Isfahan half of the world, who brought Persian art to another extraordinary flowering. The resilience is staggering. The persistence of the culture, its ability to absorb and transform and continue, century after century, conquest after conquest, and at the center of all of it, always, the language and the stories. The Shahnameh copied and recopied, through every dynasty and every conquest, each new ruling power, even those who had defeated the previous bearers of the tradition, wanting to possess this book, this great poem, this testimony to the depth and endurance of a culture they had overcome but could not erase. The first light is coming now. You can see it. A gray-silver quality entering the room through the high windows. The windows that last night showed only darkness are now beginning to show something. A paler darkness. A darkness with light behind it. The oil lamps. Their flames now so small they are almost gone. But in the new light coming through the windows, they are not needed as much. The room is beginning to find its own light. The light that comes from outside. The light of the day being born. The carved stone window frames. You can see their detail now in a way you couldn't before. The interlacing geometric patterns. The small flowers carved at the intersections of the lines. The depth of the carving. The precision of the chisel work. Persian stone carving. The great tradition of stonework in Persia stretches back to Persepolis, to the staircases of the Apadana with their processions of tribute bearers, to the bas-reliefs of Naxirastam, where the great Achaemenid kings are depicted in triumph, and where later, the Sasanian kings carved their own victories. layering the story of Persian kingship in stone, one dynasty above another, a palimpsest of power and aspiration. Naxurastim, the faces of the rock, near Persepolis, where the tombs of Darius and Xerxes and Artaxerxes are cut into the cliff face, high above the valley floor, the tombs themselves like windows in the rock, and nearby, the great carved panel showing the Sasanian king Shapur I, triumphant over 2 Roman emperors, the Emperor Valerian kneeling before him, and Philip the Arab, who had paid tribute to secure peace, standing with his horse, a dramatic statement of Persian power, carved to last forever. And it has lasted. The stone endures. But stone is not the only thing that endures. Words endure. Images endure. Music endures. The shapes that human hands make when they are trying to say something true. These endure. The light is strengthening. The gray silver is becoming something warmer. Still not quite gold, but moving toward it. The way the sky moves in those precious minutes before sunrise, through a spectrum of subtle colors, from the deep blue of late night, through silver, through pearl, through the softest possible pink, and then gold. You look at the garden through the library window, the garden that you visited in the deep of the night. It is changing in the first light. The colors are returning, very slowly, very gradually. The silver moonlight garden becoming a garden of pale color. The roses regaining their blush, their red, their deep cream. The leaves finding their green. The dark earth of the beds finding its warm brown. Color returning to the world. After the monochrome dream of the night, there is something profoundly moving about dawn. Something that goes beyond mere beauty. It speaks to something deep in us. Something older than civilization. The relief of light returning. The gratitude for the warmth that is coming. The sense of beginning. Of possibility. Of starting again. Every morning is a beginning. Every dawn is an invitation. The world has moved through the dark. And here is the light again. As promised. As always. The birds are singing now. Not just the one tentative pioneer, but many. A chorus. Building gradually. One voice joining another. Until the garden outside is full of song. The dawn chorus. One of the most beautiful natural phenomena in the world. That extraordinary daily outpouring of birdsong. That accompanies every sunrise in every garden. In every part of the world where birds live. Which is nearly everywhere. The Persian poets wrote of the dawn bird. The morning bird whose song opens the day. In Persian mystical poetry, the dawn bird's song is often associated with the awakening of the soul. The moment when sleep ends and consciousness returns. When the inner world begins to find its connection to the outer world again. Sadi wrote of dawn. Hafez wrote of dawn. Rumi wrote of dawn. All of them knew the particular quality of consciousness that comes in that liminal space. That between state. Between sleep and waking. Between dream and day. When the veil between the inner and outer worlds is thinnest. When perception is softest and most open. When beauty lands most directly on the unguarded heart. You are in that state now. That liminal space. Between the night and the day. Between the stories and the silence. Between the deep rest you have been moving through. And the gentle return to the waking world. Stay here a little longer. In this between. In this most beautiful of thresholds. The book is still open before you. The final page, with its last couplet, and below it the white space. The invitation. You place your hand very gently on the open page, not pressing, just resting. Your palm on the parchment. The parchment warm from the lamplight, warm and smooth beneath your hand. You can feel it, not physically, but something deeper than physical feeling. The weight of what is in this book, the weight of what it carries, the weight of all those lives, all those stories, all those centuries of reading and copying and carrying this work forward, all of it present beneath your hand. Ferdowsi, working in Tus, 30 years, 60,000 couplets, one word after another, one line after another, one decade after another. For this moment, for you. He wrote for you, not for you specifically, not for you by name, but for you in the deepest sense, for the reader who would come, whoever they were, wherever they were, whenever they arrived. He wrote for the one who would sit with the book in the quiet of the night, and let the stories come in, and carry them forward. You are the continuation of the Shahnameh. Every reader is. You carry it forward simply by having received it, simply by having sat in this lamplit room, and let its beauty touch you. That is enough. More than enough. That is everything. The light is golden now, the first true gold of the morning sun, entering through the high carved windows, touching the stone walls, making the carved geometric patterns glow, as if the stone itself has been waiting all night for this. The golden light reaches the table, and touches the open pages of the Shahnameh, and the illuminated borders. The gold leaf of the illuminations catches the morning light and reflects it back. The book is glowing, literally glowing, as if something within it has been waiting for the sun to remind it of itself. The gold of the calligrapher's art responding to the gold of the morning, recognizing itself in the light that has been traveling toward this page since before the book was made. And the lapis lazuli, that deep blue mineral from the mountains of Badakhshan, that journeyed along the mountain roads to the workshops of the miniaturists, ground to powder and mixed with binding agents and applied with exquisite care, now catches the morning light, and becomes something extraordinary, no longer just blue, but luminous, as if it contains within itself a sky of its own, a sky you can fall into. The pomegranate red of the decorative borders, the malachite green of the garden paintings, the silver and the ochre and the cream, all of them responding to the morning sun, all of them becoming more fully themselves in this light. The morning light is what the book has been waiting for. All night long. The night was beautiful, but the morning is the completion of the night. The answer to the question the darkness asked. In the garden outside, the peacock has emerged. You can see him through the window, walking along the edge of the central pool, his tail now fully spread, now that the light is strong enough to show it. A great fan of iridescent blue and green and gold, each eye of the tail catching the morning light, flashing, changing color as he moves. A living kaleidoscope, a walking rainbow, a daily miracle that he performs without effort, simply by being what he is. And behind the peacock, the roses, wet with dew, each petal holding a small silver globe of water, each globe reflecting the morning, 1,000 tiny mornings in a single rose bush. And beyond the roses, the cypress trees, still and tall as they were in the night, but different in the morning light. Their dark green now vivid, their vertical forms casting long shadows westward across the garden. Long shadows that will shorten as the day progresses, until they are gone, and then lengthen again eastward as the afternoon turns to evening. The shadows telling the time, the way they have always told the time. Before clocks, before calendars, the shadow of the cypress, the sundial of the garden, the fountain in the central pool, still singing, still rising, still falling back, unchanged, and yet different. In the morning light the water catches the sun, and the falling drops are briefly diamonds, briefly prisms, each one splitting the white sunlight into its component colors. Tiny rainbows, lasting only a fraction of a second, then gone, then made again, continuously. The fountain making and unmaking rainbows. All morning long. You breathe. Slow and easy. The morning air, coming through the windows, is different from the night air. Fresher, cooler still from the night, but already beginning to carry the warmth that the day will bring. The air has the quality of pure potential, of a day that has not yet made any decisions, that is still open, still full of every possibility. You look at the final page of the Shahnameh one more time. The morning light falls across it, and in this light, you see something you did not see in the lamplight of the night. A faint watermark in the parchment, visible only when the light comes through the page at this angle. A watermark showing a crescent moon, the mark of the papermaker, or the parchment maker, who made this page, hundreds of years ago, pressed their secret mark into the material before it dried. A signature invisible in ordinary conditions, visible only in certain light, only at certain angles, only to those who look closely. How many readers have looked at this page and never seen the crescent moon? How many have held it up to the light and seen it? You see it now, in the morning light. The crescent moon in the parchment. An accidental poetry. A beautiful coincidence. Or not a coincidence at all, but the intention of an artisan who understood that the moon belongs in a manuscript of poetry. Who put it there for someone. Whoever that someone would turn out to be. You. You are that someone. This moment was always waiting for you. You gently close the book. Not with finality. Not with the feeling that something has ended, but with the feeling of completing a circle. The cover comes down softly. The last page resting now against its neighbors. The book closed. Intact. Whole. But not finished. A book is never finished when it is closed. It is only resting. Waiting. For the next reader. The next lamp. The next quiet night. The gilded medallion on the cover catches the morning light. The sunburst of gold and lapis lazuli. The crescent and star at its center. The word in the center of everything. Shahnameh. Book of Kings. You stand from the chair. And stretch. Very slowly. Your arms rising. Your back lengthening. The long, luxurious stretch of someone who has rested deeply. Who has moved through the night with the ease of someone who trusted the dark to take care of them. And found that it did. You walk toward the door of the library. Not hurrying. There is no hurry. The day is just beginning. It will wait for you. As you walk, you pass the shelves of books. The hall of endless stories. Stretching on both sides of you. All of those books, all of those worlds, all of those voices, waiting patiently as only books can wait, without impatience, without resentment, simply ready. Whenever you are, you run your fingers along the spines, just lightly, feeling the different textures, the leather and the linen and the vellum, the rough and the smooth, the cold and the warm. Each book a different world at your fingertips. You pause at one book, a thin volume, the spine worn especially soft, a book read many, many times. You pull it out just far enough to see the title. A collection of Persian proverbs, the distilled wisdom of the culture. Not in the form of epic or lyric poetry, but in the form of short, practical statements. The wisdom of the everyday. Persian proverbs. There are thousands of them, many dating to the pre-Islamic period, preserved in the literature and the oral tradition, embedded in the texts of poets and scholars, carried in the memory of generations. One of them comes to you now. Shab Karavid Zang Az Del Baravad. When the night passes, the rust lifts from the heart. Yes, the rust lifts. The night has done its work. The long, beautiful, story-filled night has lifted something, has loosened something, has cleaned something in you. You slide the book back into its place and continue toward the door. The door is the same carved wooden door you entered through last night, or was it much longer ago? Time in this library moves differently. You mentioned this before, and it is still true. You open the door and step out into the garden in the morning light. Oh, the morning garden is everything the night garden was, and more, because now you can see the colors. All the colors that the moon had softened to silver, now vivid and present. The roses in their full range, red and pink and white and gold and the deep, deep purple. The fruit trees with their hanging abundance, the green of the cypress against the blue of the morning sky. A blue so clear and deep it seems to vibrate. And the dew on everything. Every surface holding its small spheres of water. Every petal and leaf and blade of grass, glittering in the early sunlight, as if the garden has studded itself with diamonds overnight. As if while you slept, the garden dressed itself for the morning, put on its most beautiful jewelry, to greet the day. The air is extraordinary, cool still, the coolness of the night lingering in the shaded places, but the sun already warming the open spaces, the dew beginning to evaporate from the sunlit surfaces, rising invisibly back into the air, carrying with it the concentrated essence of rose and jasmine and wet earth. The scent of the morning garden, indescribable and unforgettable. The scent of beginning. The peacock walks through the dew-covered grass, leaving a trail of perfect footprints, each one distinct, each one briefly visible before the dew falls back, and the grass recovers. The peacock moving through the garden, leaving his trace and then watching it disappear. The way we all move through the world, leaving traces that become invisible with time, but were real, absolutely real, in the moment of their making. You walk to the central pool. The fountain is still singing, still rising and falling, as it has all night, as it has for centuries. You look into the pool. The water is very clear in the morning light, clear down to the mosaic tiles of the bottom. Tiles in a pattern of dark blue and pale cream, a pattern of flowing arabesques. curling and uncurling in the still water. The pattern that repeats but never exactly repeats. Like the pattern of waves on a shore. Like the pattern of stories told across generations. The same and never quite the same. Your reflection in the pool. Looking back at you. The reflection is soft. Rippled slightly by the falling water of the fountain. Not sharp and precise as a mirror, but impressionistic. The way we see ourselves in water. Not exactly, but essentially. The shape of us without the distracting detail. And behind your reflection in the water, the sky, that deep morning blue, and the cypress trees, and the roses, and the birds still singing their dawn chorus. All of it reflected in the pool. A garden within a garden. A sky within a sky. The world and its echo. Birdsong is everywhere now. Not just from the garden, but from beyond the walls. From the orchards and the fields and the far trees. A great outpouring of song. As if the birds have been holding it all night. Saving it. And now, with the morning's permission, they release it all at once. The birds of Persia. The hoopoe. The crestfallen king of birds in Adder's poem. The one who leads the 30 birds on their quest. The hoopoe with his crown of feathers. His striped wings. His long curving beak. You can hear a hoopoe now. Somewhere beyond the garden wall. It's called distinctive. Up, up, up. 3 ascending notes. Then silence. Then again. Up, up, up. The hoopoe in Persian mythology and poetry was the bird of wisdom, the bird of the prophet Suleiman, who could speak the language of all birds, and used the hoopoe as his messenger. The hoopoe as communicator between worlds. Between the human and the divine. Between the visible and the invisible. Between the story and the silence beyond the story. You listen to the hoopoe's 3-note call. And you breathe. In and out. In and out. The morning air. The rose scent. The water sound. The bird song. And within you, the stories. Ferdowsi's 60,000 couplets are not inside you. You could not carry all of them. No one could. But something of them is inside you. Something essential. Something distilled. The feeling of them. The quality of the world they describe. The Persian garden in summer. The patient wisdom. The love of beauty. The trust in the durability of the good. These things are inside you. They will stay inside you. They will color your dreaming. They will surface in quiet moments. They will come to you when you need them. The way all the best things come to us when we need them. Not always when we ask, but always when we need. You turn back to look at the library. The building in the morning light is different from the building in the night. Its pale stone now touched with gold. The carved window frames casting geometric shadow patterns across the wall. A pattern of shadows as beautiful as a design, as intentional seeming, as if the architect understood what the morning sun would do, and planned for it, designed the windows and the carving to collaborate with the sun, to create this shadow poem on the stone wall. This is what the great Persian architects understood. That a building is not complete in itself. It is complete only in relationship to the light. And the light changes. So the building changes. Is different in the morning and the afternoon and the evening and the night. Is different in winter and summer. Is different when clouds pass and when the sun is direct. The building alive. Responsive, in constant conversation with the world around it. the great mosques of Persia, the Friday Mosque of Isfahan, the Nasir al-Mulk Mosque in Shiraz, the Pink Mosque, where in the morning the sun comes through its stained glass windows and fills the interior with a riot of colored light, the floor carpeted with patches of red and blue and gold, moving slowly across the tiles as the sun moves. A daily performance, a daily miracle, that the architect built into the building's bones. Every morning the sun rises and the light enters, and the mosque performs its miracle. For anyone who has come to see it, for anyone who has sat in that colored light and breathed it in, you have carried something like that this night, something that was waiting to be received. And now that you have received it, you carry it with you, a colored light inside you, that will illuminate things differently. Going forward, the hoopoe calls again. Up, 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 somewhere in the orchards beyond the wall. And the nightingale, the bulbul, that was singing in the deep night, has fallen silent. Its work done, its songs offered to the dark. The nightingale is a night singer, a creature of the hours you have just come through. And as the day brightens, it quiets, rests, until the next dusk calls it to sing again. The cycle, the eternal cycle, day into night into day, the bulbul of the night, the hoopoe of the morning, the peacock of the midday garden, the doves of the late afternoon. Each hour has its bird. Each state of light has its proper inhabitant. Each phase of the day its own characteristic beauty. And the night, your night, had its beauty too. The beauty of the library in lamplight. The beauty of the garden in moonlight. The beauty of old words softly encountered. The beauty of rest. You walk back toward the library door, to return the book to its table, to bid it good morning. Before you go, the door is open now. You didn't open it. It simply is open. The morning breeze moving through it, carrying the garden scents into the book-scented room. Two worlds mixing. The garden and the library. The outdoor and the indoor. The natural and the human-made. Breathing together. In the morning air, you step back inside. The library in daylight. The high windows flood the room with soft, diffused morning light. The kind of light that is everywhere and from nowhere specific. A general luminosity that fills every corner. That reaches even the shelves deepest in the shadows. In this light the books look different. Less mysterious perhaps. More themselves. Their spines visible. Their titles readable. Their physical reality clear and immediate. Books. Beautiful books. Resting on beautiful shelves. In a beautiful room. Made beautiful by human care and human love. The carved walnut shelves. Their grain visible in the morning light. The wood itself beautiful. The way all well-chosen and well-worked wood is beautiful. Carrying within its grain the memory of the tree. The years of growth. The seasons of rain and sun. The oil lamps have burned out. Their wicks thin black threads. Their reservoirs empty. They sit cold and dark on their brass brackets. But the room does not need them now. The sun has taken over their work, and does it effortlessly, without any fuel but itself. You walk to the carved table. The Shahnameh rests there, closed now. Its burgundy leather cover dark and rich in the morning light. The gilded medallion at its center glowing softly. You rest your hand on the cover one more time. Just for a moment. Thank you. You say it in your heart. if not aloud. Thank you for the stories, for the beauty, for the long night of quiet companionship. And the book, with whatever strange life great books possess, seems to receive this, seems to know. You lift your hand, and you turn toward the door, and you walk back out into the morning. The garden receives you. The fountain sings. The roses breathe. The cypress trees stand. The peacock walks his stately circuit. And the birds, the many birds, sing and sing and sing. You walk through the garden, to the carved wooden gate in the garden wall. The gate with its interlocking stars and hexagons. The gate with its crescent-shaped iron handle. Smooth from centuries of hands. You take the handle, and you push the gate open. It swings smoothly, without resistance, as if it has been waiting all night to let you through. Beyond the gate, the road, the morning road, stretching out in the early sunlight. The road that leads forward, into the day, into whatever the day will bring. But you carry something now, something you didn't have before, or something you had but didn't know you had. That is perhaps more accurate. You carry the smell of old books and cedar and beeswax and rose. You carry the sound of a fountain in a moonlit garden. You carry the image of gold calligraphy on cream parchment. You carry the feeling of sitting in lamplight, alone with a beautiful old book, while the stars turned overhead. You carry the knowledge that beauty endures, that stories endure, that language endures, that the best of what humans have made and thought and felt outlasts the conditions of its making, crosses the centuries, crosses the cultures, reaches us, here, now, in this morning, in this life. You carry a little of Ferdowsi with you, a little of the 30 years he spent in service to his language, his culture, his vision of what humans can be at their best. You carry a little of the garden, the paradise garden, the walled enclosure of beauty, the Persian vision of the world as it could be, should be, when we tend it with care, when we give it water and attention and love. You carry the stars, those patient, distant lights that look down on Ferdowsi and Tuss, and on the calligraphers in their workshops, and on the miniaturists painting their tiny worlds, and on all the readers who came before you, and on you, and on all the readers who will come after. You carry the fountain song, that one endless note, rising and falling, the rhythm of the garden, the rhythm of the heart, the rhythm of a life that contains both effort and rest, both rising and falling back, both the column of water reaching upward, and the beautiful, inevitable descent, and then the rising again. The morning road stretches ahead. The sun is warm on your back. The birds are singing in every tree. The air is fresh and full of possibility. And somewhere behind you, behind the garden wall, the library stands, its carved stone cool in the morning shade, its books in their places, the Shahnameh on its table, the lamps waiting to be lit again tonight, the fountain singing its one song, the cypress trees standing their patient vigil. The library will be there tonight, when the stars return, when the lamps are lit again, when another reader comes, another quiet soul, another tired mind that needs stories, another heart that needs beauty, another person who has come to the end of a long day and needs to rest in the arms of something larger and older and wiser than themselves. The library will be waiting, as it has always waited, as it will always wait. Patient, warm, ready. And the Shahnameh will be there on its table, its pages breathing, its calligraphy glowing in the lamplight, its stories alive in every line. 60,000 couplets, 60,000 invitations to a quieter, more beautiful, more meaningful existence, ready for the next reader, ready for you, whenever you come back. And you will come back. You always come back to the things that gave you real rest, real beauty, real peace. The beautiful things wait for us. They don't go anywhere. They simply wait. In the patient way of books, and gardens, and stars. In the patient way of everything that is made from love, and intended to last. Go now, into your morning, into your day. Carry the garden with you. Carry the fountain's song. Carry the scent of roses in the night air. Carry the warmth of lamplight on golden calligraphy. Carry Ferdowsi's faith. That beauty endures. That words matter. That the effort to make something true and beautiful is never wasted. Even when it goes unrecognized, even when it takes 30 years, even when the Sultan sends only silver when he promised gold, the work remains. The work outlasts everything. Carry the nightingale's song, the song that cannot be held back, the song that must come out because silence in the face of beauty is its own kind of loss. Carry the patience of the cypress tree, rooted, reaching, consistent through every season, standing its ground, quietly, without fuss, without drama, simply being what it is. Fully, carry the fountain's rhythm, rising, falling, rising again, the rhythm that says, this is not over, this is never over. The water always returns. The light always returns. The stories always return. And now you can rest. Not the rest of the garden, or the rest of the library chair, but the deeper rest. The full rest. The rest your body needs, and your mind needs, and your heart needs. Let the stories settle in you, like sediment settling in still water, finding their place, becoming part of you. Let the fountain song carry you, down, and down, into the quiet deep. Let the lamplight dim behind your eyes. Let the calligraphy blur into gentle darkness. Let the roses release their scent. One last time, very faintly, like a memory of a memory. Let the cypress trees become shadows. Let the stars become the darkness between stars. Let the garden gate close softly behind you. And rest. The Shahnameh is closed. Its stories safe within it. Waiting. Patient as they have always been patient. Waiting for tonight. And the night after. And the night after that. Waiting for every reader who will ever come, with a quiet mind, and an open heart, and a willingness to sit in the lamplight, with a beautiful old book, and let the stories come in. The fountain sings one last note. The nightingale is silent, resting now in the garden's green heart. The oil lamp has gone dark. The stars have faded into the blue of morning. And you are resting. Deeply, safely, warmly. The stories are inside you. The beauty is inside you. The garden is inside you. The fountain is inside you. You carry the Shahnameh in your heart. And the Shahnameh, in its patient, eternal way, carries you. Rest now. Just rest. The night is yours. The dream is yours. The garden is yours. Rest. End of chapter 4. End of Moonlit Whispers of the Shahnameh. For all those who love beautiful things and wish to carry beauty with them into the night.